Hey, what a flippity flop though! This is Stranger, our big moose! And we're here at Faultarian Journal number 8. Guys, this is 8 weeks in a row. This is super fucking fantastic. I hope you've really been enjoying this stuff. And I'm here today with two special guests. The man, the myth, the legend, Sockcap. And the poster boy of Fault, Reverb. And of course, I'm here with Gotta Get Swole. And unfortunately, S.A. Reed could not join us here today. But we're going to keep rolling it, baby. Shout out to S.A. Reed. He made that a little intro music. And Reverb, Sockcap, and Chandler, please introduce yourselves.
Who wants to go first?
Introduce us?
So boys, the name's Reverb. I'm a fault tester, and I like playing video games, dude.
Sockcap, old streamer, old man, former rank 1 fault player for the EA weekend, baby. Reverb wasn't, so I got that going for me.
Sock forgot to tell he's bald, by the way.
I am bald.
That's okay, I'm bald too. Well, not as bald as like you are, but I'm getting there.
Wait, what do you mean?
What do I mean?
I still got plenty of hair, dog. Come on, bro. How you gonna?
Not as much as me.
I mean, that's true. I guess that's true. Hey, give me 1 second to close my door. I don't want to catch any background noise. I'll be right back.
And Chandler, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, at Gotta Get Swole, still here in the background,
Awesome.
adding whatever I can.
So, for anyone that doesn't know who Gotta Get Swole is, in particular, we've been friends for almost 10 years there now. I met him back when I was 15 years old in science class in grade 10. And we've been friends ever since. And we're here now. When it comes down to it, Chandler's usually the businessman, to the most part. Like, we kind of do it together, but Chandler is the voice of logic most of the time. And we got Katro. Thank you for the follow. I really appreciate it. So today, guys, we got our Act 1 there. So we're going to go over Sockcap and Reverb's story. Ask them how they got into Paragon, ask them how they got into Fault, so on and so forth. Their goals. We got a few extra topics, of course. And then for Act 2, we got why depth, not why is depth. Why depth? Like, why is depth important for a MOBA? A few ideas for depth. And then what would be a few things they wish that they knew when they started playing a MOBA that they could share with us. Then for Act 3 there, after a little quick 10-minute break, we have roles. So, Reverb and Sock, if I'm not mistaken, usually play ADC and support, so that's what we're going to start with. But of course, we're going to talk about every single role, and how it is different in Fault compared to Paragon. And if I'm not mistaken, there hasn't been any quote-unquote tester stuff yet, from my knowledge, for this new patch, if anyone knows what I'm talking about. So it's actually like a perfect time, because we're going to be talking before that for the public knowledge before. So what I'm trying to say is they can't tell us anything that they don't know. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got another extra topic.
We'll see. We'll see.
So, Sockcap, it's up to you, man. Tell me, why do you love MOBAs? And what made you get into Paragon?
I used to, like I said, I haven't said it on this, but I came from like a fighting game background, right? Played Smash, so I did that for like 15 years, and one day I was kind of browsing through the free games on PlayStation. I saw that Paragon was free on the PlayStation Store, so I thought to me, honestly, what drew me in initially was that the characters looked pretty interesting and detailed, and you had like a nice mesh up of different characters from different kind of genres. And I'd never played a MOBA before, so I booted in. I think the first character I picked was Grux. I went like mid lane with him and got fucking destroyed. And I just thought that, even though I basically just fed I still had quite a bit of fun. So I picked Gadget, I think, next, and at that point I was pretty much hooked. So um, I started looking at guides and stuff because, I mean, I might not be as competitive in nature as like Reverb, but I still have that competitive nature. So the first thing that I'm gonna do when I get into a game that's PvP, that um, the first thing I'm gonna do when I get into a game that's PvP oriented or is just a PvP game is I'm gonna look up guides because I wanna, I wanna learn, I wanna improve and get better. So that's kind of how I got started in it. Just from there, I just kept enjoying it, and we kept climbing. And when um, I think when I got to, yeah, like I played with a buddy of mine named Lax Goalie, so we just played duo and support, which really helped me like kind of stay engaged in the gameplay. But what really sealed the deal for me was when we started playing against like streamers, and that's when we like I got real hooked because you could sit back, watch a gameplay. I think the first person that I ever watched was Solo Nazgul, and I watched some play where I like blinked on top of him and destroyed him with Richter. So anyway,
Awesome. Wait, you destroyed Solo Nazgul with Richter?
In that particular game, just that one instance, it was
Ah.
I don't know if I don't think we won that game, but it's back on Legacy where like there was that place in between your tier 1 and your tier 2 tower where you could go like really high and jump down into the jungle.
Yeah.
So I jumped down, and he was playing Gadget, and uh, as I was falling through the air, he was actually running below me. So as soon as I landed, I just blinked right on top of him and just like immediately ulted him. And it actually, from his perspective, he didn't see me at all because I was coming from up above. So he just saw Richter appear right in front of him, just like immediately ulted. So
Nice. Nice. That's pretty cool. So if I'm not mistaken, you were a high diamond player for anyone that followed Agora.gg and Paragon. And
I was well, I was I would say an average diamond player.
Average.
The highest I ever got was like 1850ish, something like that.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I was in diamond.
That's awesome. And so, what made you fall in love with Paragon? Like, why did you choose the game once you got into it?
Well, just basically, like I said, the combat felt real smooth. The characters felt diverse. Like all the animations, everything just felt like real smooth. Right when I first
Mm-hmm.
started playing it, it was crazy smooth. Um, so everything just kind of was seamless. It had like a really nice flow to it. You know what I mean? So it's uh, that aspect, gameplay wise, and I was surprised because like I said, when I first got into the game and like really started to trying to improve in the game, I went online and I looked, and there really wasn't very many guides or anything like that, early on. So
No, there wasn't.
I was kind of surprised by that because I was like, "There's no way that this game's not like blowing up." You know what I mean? Because it's got like all the ingredients that you would think a game would have to blow up. The gameplay is pretty solid back then, anyway. In Legacy, gameplay was pretty solid. I thought it was a little slow, but it was still pretty solid. Like I said, everything felt smooth. The graphics were incredible. Didn't have any problem with like lagging or anything like that. So all in all, it just felt, and everything just had impact to it, and all the abilities had impact to it. It felt like pretty rewarding when you hit like a clutch ability or whatever. Um, that won you a fight, or ended the fight before it even began. So all those things kind of are what made me stick around. Plus, you know, eventually, if you start streaming something, as
Yeah.
much as people don't want to own up to it, but eventually, if you start streaming something, it's the only thing that you've streamed for a year, 2 years, and you've built up a small community. It kind of becomes part of your identity. You know what I mean? So that also kind of keeps you sticking around.
That's 100%. And I'll just throw in, so I remember my first game. So if it actually wasn't for Steve, the guy that made the intro there, I would have never played Paragon. So I remember playing Paragon myself on Legacy. I played one map. I didn't even finish the game, and I played as Greystone. I got pooped on. Never played a MOBA before in my life. Went and said I was going to go have supper. Never came back. Got kicked out of the game. And then 6 months later, I came back and gave it another try after Steve hounded me. And it was on Monolith now. It like just came to Monolith. It was like day 2 of Monolith. And I came back, and I played Murdoch, and I just fell in love. Like, I don't know how else to put it. I fell in love. I also did my research, though. I finally understood what it meant to rotate and, like, hit your CS and all that stuff. I didn't get it at first. That first, like, 30 minutes I played. Yeah, and that was what kicked me off into my MOBA legacy that I am currently building upon. So, Reverb, how did you hear about Paragon? Were you a MOBA player before Paragon?
No. My like gaming background before Paragon was I've been like PC gaming since I was like pretty young. I think I started playing PC games when I was like 6 or 7. So I'd play like a lot of like old RuneScape, play like WoW back in the day, and I got really hooked into like StarCraft 2 whenever it was like in its heyday.
Okay.
But then like a lot of my friends in like middle school had PS4s, and in high school had PS4s, so I started like playing some PS4 more and stepped away from PC gaming as often. And one of my good friends, Micah, he actually like lives down the street from me. We were in his basement playing. I think we were playing like NHL, and he was like, "Yeah, there's this new game I'm downloading right now," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And while we're waiting to see it, like have it download, he shows me the trailer, and I don't know if you guys have seen this trailer, but it's like the PlayStation reveal trailer, and it plays this like M83 song in the background, and it is the most like beautiful, well done trailer with it's like all the legacy heroes like just duking it out.
You mean the original Paragon trailer there?
The original like OG world release trailer, yeah. It was like that trailer was like bam, like it hit me, and I was like, wow, I want to play this game. So yeah, I'd never played MOBAs before, but like StarCraft is definitely not a MOBA, but there's like some inherent similarities when it comes to like farming and like some macro play. But at the end of the day, like I was pretty new to MOBAs. I feel like a lot of the Paragon community was pretty new to MOBAs. Yeah. So I once I got my hands on it, I pretty much played it from the beginning of Legacy, and then I stopped playing for a little bit, like in the middle of Monolith because it got stale, and I started picking up another game. But came back, and whenever the big V42 New Dawn update came, played for a couple months, and then game died. So
I'm just gonna stop you there for a second.
Yeah.
This is what Reverb meant by the trailer, guys. For anyone that hasn't seen this, or just to put you on a little nostalgia trip for a second.
Feels.
Oh boy.
Hey, Sock, your eyes are sweating, bro.
It's a,
My eyes are sweating. I don't know about that, dude.
you know what? You know what I was thinking while I was watching that.
What?
Sockcap, if he takes off his glasses, is the real Steel.
True.
If I had the headgear on and stuff, hey, maybe I'll do that as a cosplay one day. You know, just dress up as Steel. The one thing I wanted to say is that shit's like Sunday service, dude, for every Paragon player. I don't know if you've like ever noticed that, but every time somebody like plays that shit on stream, everybody just like fucking watches it,
They
doesn't
melt,
say anything.
dude. They
Yeah,
melt.
it's like you know when you're a kid and you're in church or whatever, and your parents like, hey, we're praying, bow your head, close your eyes, you know, or whatever, and you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the same shit that that trailer does.
You know what? Every time I see that trailer, I do a little salute to the screen.
True. True.
Like, thank you. I like tip the fake hat. Thank you for everything that you did. Because Paragon was 100% my favorite game of all time, and like that's crazy because for me, I was an FPS player, and like I ended up being pretty big in that, and so for me to stop playing, the only reason I even tried Paragon out to begin with is because it was Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, and that game fucking sucked. I would not play it, and it was the first Call of Duty I just wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't even give it a shot. So then I had to find a new game. So that's when Paragon kind of came in, and for me, who did 10 years of Call of Duty, because I started playing Call of Duty when I was like 8 years old, to try out this new game, and for me to say it's the best game of all time is like, that's just mind blowing to me, and I don't know, I'm really excited to see what Fault's gonna do, in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
So Reverb, sorry.
Yep.
I was cut off Sock, that's why I said sorry.
No. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, how did you get into Fault? Like, how did you become a tester, and how did you and Sockcap meet?
That's a loaded ass question, but so kind of two ways. So I originally heard about like Fault from I think a British YouTube video, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And Britick, I don't know how he heard about it. I guess he was like looking on Reddit or something, but he got in super early, right? There's like literally like 8 people on this Discord, right? It's like the devs, Britick, and like some Britick stands, right? And then I joined, and I'm like, oh, wait, these names look familiar. And it wasn't Britick that looked familiar. Omninaut and Fresher Than Febreze, which I don't know how aware Chad is, but are two like the main founders of Fault. I used to play Paragon with in a TeamSpeak group called the Marauder Clan, which is crazy. It's like 3 years ago. But anyways, so I was like, wait, I know these people. And I DM'd Omni and kind of like caught up a little bit. And then got in a tester. It was like probably one of the first like 5 testers. And then at the time, me and Sockcap's little crew, it's got a nice little Discord, some good people in there. We've been hanging out every day, playing games, playing League, playing all sorts of stupid games. I was like, hey boys, come hop in here. And it's actually pretty funny is because I by no means take like responsibility for it, but the amount of people from like Sock's Discord server that ended up being kind of important in Fault is nuts. Because, like, I mean, me and Sock are, like, the least important people from that Discord that came. We're just some monkey testers, right? But, like, Jamston's, like, lead gameplay, like, balance and gameplay design. He's from there. Ryan Red is community manager. He's from Sock's Discord. Jekka is, like, the tester leader, which just, it's kind of crazy to, like, just see kind of your homies, like, transcend over a game. But me and Sock actually met because I met Jekka just like probably a year ago. There was another Paragon remake, but it wasn't really a Paragon remake. It was a scam. It was called Agora with an A-H or something. And long story short, like, this guy was, like, blatantly, like, just cash grabbing people. And we kind of just, like, met up through that Discord. And then we also played some Paragon demo, which was a Steam game that came out for a while. But, yeah, that's the Reverb and Sockcap origin story right there.
Yeah, I honestly think that I think the first time I started playing with you actually was the Paragon demo.
Yeah.
That's you played. Actually, Balix and I were going through some of my files on my computer, and I found a video that I never uploaded from Paragon demo. It's like the game where you and I were both playing Decker versus Jacka playing Gideon, and he had somebody else on his team that's playing Gideon. I think it was what's his name, Hoffy.
Yeah.
Hoffy. Yeah, and like we were just like nailing them with stun bubbles, like from like real far away and one-shotting them and stuff like that. So it was pretty interesting. Which, by the way, if the chat doesn't know what we're talking about, Paragon demo was a demo. It's like an ARAM map. There wasn't any like textures to the map. It was just gray boxed, but there was a decent amount of characters in there. It's made by one dude named Danimals on Parade, and he did a pretty good job. At that point, that was the smoothest Paragon remake that we had played to that point. So it was pretty neat. I think he did a good job for just being one dude. You know what I mean?
So I gotta ask you guys. So you guys are testers. You guys know a lot of stuff about the game. You guys have had a lot of opportunity to give your own input directly with Strange Matter, which is super fantastic. But what do you two personally want out of Fault? So why is your reason for playing Fault besides that you just love the game? Like what do you want in the future?
Go ahead on that one, Reverb, if you.
I mean, first and foremost, like I like good games, right? And I don't have a lot of games that like grab my attention. It's like, wow, I want to like sit and play this game, and I want to like stream it, and I want to like commit time to like being good at it and having fun at it is easy to do. Like I don't have to like try to have fun. I just enjoy the game, and Paragon did that for me for a while, and then it stopped doing it for me, and then it did it for me again. But that Fault has like hit that spot, right? And I'm not looking for like a Paragon remake. At the end of the day, there's multiple reasons why Paragon like didn't succeed. But one of the inherent ones was like just how the game was played. It was more of a hero brawler than a MOBA.
Yeah.
So what Fault's doing is kind of revisioning the Paragon-esque MOBA and turning it into more of a traditional MOBA with that great Paragon combat experience, right? And I think that Paragon has one of like the highest Paragon and or Fault / like that. Anytime I say Paragon, I'm like referring to Fault as well. So like the skill cap and like level of outplay you can do in like these games are really high, and that's crazy to think because a lot of it comes down to just like positioning, aim, and stuff like that. But I like want the game to succeed because I want to be able to play it, right? I want the game to be as good as possible. But also, like over the past 6-7 months or so, like I've become like emotionally invested in this game from like seeing it go from literally like a gray box map with like horrible UI and like really laggy servers and game breaking bugs to like what EA is gonna look like and all the crazy stuff that's coming. Like I've made some amazing friends over the past like 6 months because of this game, and like met great people and like given myself an opportunity to be a part of something really special with Fault. So that's what my motives are now. Is like I'm in here for the long haul. I want this game to succeed, and of course I want to stream it, and I love playing the game, and I might try to play in like the competitive scene if there is one, but I just want the game to succeed.
Yeah.
Sweet Reverb.
What about
I've
you?
I have made a lot of friends as well. I'm sorry. What was the why am I like emotionally invested in
What
Fault?
do you want out of Fault?
What do I
What?
want out of Fault? I want to see it blow up. I think it's. I mean, obviously, the same stuff that Reverb said also applies, right? Like, I've made quite a bit of friends through testing. Met like a lot of great people. So all that stuff, is wonderful, and that's part of the reason why I stream and play games just in general, right? It's the social aspect of it, which is always enjoyable to me. Um, but what I would like to see out of Fault was I would like to see it succeed in a big way. I mean, once again, when we were talking about Paragon, I was saying that I was surprised about how the game wasn't blowing up. Um, but I felt like it had like all the right ingredients for success. That's um, I'm hoping that, and it seems to be the case, that Strange Matter is approaching the game with a good like design philosophy, how they want to kind of make the game have a high skill ceiling and a low floor. So there's like a lot of depth there, as well as kind of keeping it fun and entertaining in like an action packed kind of way. So I want to see it blow up in a big way. I would actually fucking lose my mind if 3-4 years from now you're seeing people on a big stage playing like you would League or Dota or something along those lines. And a lot of people think that that's not possible. I mean, I disagree with that. I do think, however, that it's it's got a long road to get there, and it's going to need the support of the Paragon community themselves to get there. But it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility for something like that to happen. So
Me personally, when it comes to Fault, I want a game that I can play for years down the road that blows up. That's like the main thing. But my number two thing is what I would love out of Fault is if through what I'm currently doing, I would love to be like a pioneer of Fault. I would love to be someone that has his own community kind of thing. Uh, that's pretty much it. Then
yeah,
obviously I
for
want to be
sure.
big. That's my two big things.
Yeah,
Uh,
that would also be that would be amazing too if that happened to, I mean, honestly, anybody in this community. If anybody in this community that I've gotten to know personally blows up from it in any way, shape, or form, then that would be incredible. I would love to see that for all my homies. So
Throwback to I'm the Myth Dad.
yeah, yeah. It's just like that's why I believe that anything's possible, right? Because you've got somebody like I'm the Myth who played Paragon and jumped to Fortnite on the early days, and that shit blew up, and now he was and still is a fairly large streamer. He was one of the biggest streamers for a good while. So, um, that's pretty incredible.
so the next thing I want to ask you guys is, what is something that you both have failed at? What is something that really, what's something you failed at, whether it be in game, as a streamer, as a content creator, as a tester, they can share.
Like for Fault,
Yeah, Fault, Paragon.
um, well, I think that something like that I've not necessarily failed at, but not done like as good of is like just streaming in general. Um, like during the first holiday access week, I played the game for like 12 hours a day and wasn't streaming.
Mm-hmm.
For like the first like 3 days, and then I was like, wait, I should be streaming this, and just like trying to establish myself because no matter what, I'm gonna play the game. It's just a matter of like what like if I want to stream, I have to like have an audience, right? Well, technically you don't have to have an audience, but I want to have an audience. So like just building up like the brand and essentially like my identity earlier would probably be something I could do. But I feel pretty like confident in what I've done, and I don't really have too many like regrets with what I've done with Fault. I've invested a whole lot of time into the game and the team and making it better. Even though I'm not like physically coding, but like it's not like in a bragging way, but there's things in the game that exist that like I have directly recommended and talked to like the development team that are either implemented now or being implemented for early access. So overall, not too much I'm really like sad at, I guess.
For me, it's Gideon ults. I filled a lot of Gideon ults in tournaments, which wasn't that great. So made things kind of rough. That was back in actual Paragon. But somebody made a YouTube video out of it, which was it's pretty rough to watch, and we ended up losing that match. But in terms of failing other stuff, I don't think I've failed at anything. I'm pretty fucking great. So
if I was to say something I would have failed at since I came onto the Fault scene was number one, I was in the Discord I've been in the Discord since December. But I never said my first word in the Discord until Alpha 3 weekend, actually. And the only reason I asked is I was one of those people. I was like, why is my game crashing? Is essentially what I asked. And then I started talking all the time. I really wish I took the time to explore other MOBAs, especially with how much I loved Paragon. Because once Paragon died, that was it. I never touched another MOBA after that. Like, I tried Smite out for a little bit after Alpha 3 weekend and stuff, but before that, I never touched another MOBA that whole time. And also, with my stream, I knew nothing about streaming at the time, and I just started up my stream, and I would just fix it as I go. I think I could have spent more time prepping, but that's whatever.
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Hindsight is 2020. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't feel too bad about that. But if you got,
Hey, I linked a video.
Oh, is that the Gideon ult?
Yeah, that's some quality shit right there.
Hang on, guys. You guys got to see this video. Oh, boy.
It's a rough one, dude.
Oh, yeah. I've seen this before. It's very rough.
One big alta, one big good alta, that changes the whole game.
You can see him sweat, dude.
Ultra.
Someone gassed him. I got nervous.
Take it. I'm running.
Oh, we're not going.
Oh,
no. We have no mana.
Why, dude? Go in now.
Jesus Christ.
No.
It's that Seinfeld music. It all goes wrong.
Yeah, that's my B.
No, it's fine.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's that video.
One game, by the way.
Wait, that was all
Yeah.
one game.
Yeah, it was all from one game. Yep. So all from one game, my friend. Yeah, one Gideon ult can change the whole game. That was my teammate Raquando, who's I'm gonna say it on here because he'll probably never watch it, but I'll say it on here. He was actually a really good Paragon player, for sure. So a good guy too, a good guy.
So I think Chandler there, he had a question for you.
Yeah, so basically, looking to the future, like, if you guys could make any one big change to Fault, what personally would you want to switch right now? Whether it be a new feature or like just a rework of something that you just find annoying or something you want to see that may never actually be a thing.
Well, I mean, something that I know will be a thing, but like it's not right now. Is like the game needs a solid ranked mode to succeed.
Yeah.
Because like at the end of the day, MOBAs are fun, but like it's a competitive game, right? So even at the lowest ends of like a MOBA, the goal is always to win. Okay, and you win. It's fun to win, and it's fun to like do good, but like you could play like Call of Duty or Overwatch or PUBG and not really win and still have like relatively a fun time. But like it's not a good feeling in MOBAs to like just get your like dick like stomped in, right? Like you don't want that to happen, right?
No.
So like having a solid ranked mode that accurately represents your skill and tries to match against other players, and obviously like the size of the player pool and stuff like that will affect this, but that's to me like obviously having a solid game is like priority one, but then like to keep your game solid and keep people playing and like keep finding balance and adding new things is you need a solid ranked mode.
Yeah, I do. And like
Yeah,
it's and just to go on that point, like it's like if you were to say you needed a ranked mode and it was 2010, I might disagree with you, to be honest. But in 2020, they have proven time and time and time again in multiple games, in multiple different genres of games, that competitive anything really is what keeps the game alive, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's really what makes a game that is only supposed to last 3 years last 10 years. For example, like a game like Quake, for anyone that knows what that is. That game is still alive because of the competitive scene.
I mean, do you know anyone that actually likes playing Dota for fun?
No.
Do you even know anyone that actually likes playing Dota?
Dusty.
No.
So he's not a person, but that's like my point though. Is like that is the most popular game on Steam.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind, but that is the most competitive game ever made, right? And people love that shit.
And that game is not noob friendly whatsoever. Like, yeah, you're gonna get pooped on.
Yeah, not at all. It takes like thousands of hours to get like even like remotely average at the game, pretty much. So yeah, it's a huge learning curve in that game, and I do think that there is a thing of like having a game being too difficult, right? Where it can kind of be like a little bit off-putting for somebody that doesn't want to like devote that much time. But there really isn't like there really isn't. It's one of those things where it's better to have it be that way than the reverse, where it's way too easy, right? Because if it's way too easy, then nobody's gonna want to put any time into it. You know, nobody's gonna want to like improve or anything along those lines. So it's better to have it be more complex than anything else. You know what I mean? So.
And Sock, what about you? If you could change anything at Fault, what would you change?
I don't know if I would necessarily change anything right now. What I do hope that they do in the future is I hope that they add like some actual new mechanics, because we've talked about this before. I think that in 3D MOBA you have more chances to do something that you couldn't do in isometric top-down. So adding those new kinds of mechanics, I think, would be really cool. So doing something along those lines, and just really trying to get in depth with it. I think, because they're gonna have to. At some point, they're gonna run out of uh, assets, right? And they're gonna have to make their own heroes, and
Yeah.
hopefully by that point, they financially are doing, really well. But when they get to that point, like they're gonna have to really try to figure out um, a way to make the game pop out. Uh, more than like League or Dota, or at the very least Smite, right? It's gonna have to pop out a lot more than Smite does, which I think it already will in some senses, but uh, they're gonna have to get to that point where they're pulling people from other games, and I think one of the ways to do that, like I said, is to just really make some interesting characters that utilize that 3D space well. Um, and I think that would be that's what I would like to see anyway. They do something like that.
Cool. Yeah. If I had to say one thing, I would love to see more of Fault that I currently haven't seen, and I'm sure it's gonna happen. I just want to see it get. Oh my gosh! Look at me get pooped on. I just want to see it get to the level of what Paragon was in like the way it felt and smoothness. And I think they're gonna get there. I just think it's gonna take a lot of time. A lot.
I think
over a year.
I think it'll be here a lot sooner than you think.
Did you hear that, folks?
Yeah.
Right from the poster boy himself.
Yeah,
I'm excited, man. Oh my gosh!
I mean, at the end of the day, like, so I don't want to talk about any other like projects. Whenever you're building a game, like I'm no game developer, but I can rationalize my thought process here. Like, whenever you're building something, like if you want to build a house, you don't start with the shingles, right? You don't start by painting the house. So what Fault's done is like built a really strong back end server side.
They started with the foundation before the house was even built.
And they've got their own like in-house version of Unreal, and they've at least tripled the size of their development team, and they've been outsourcing AAA professionals like contracted to come in.
Yeah.
They're their own company in Montreal. They're doing all the right things, like first. So it's really easy. Well, I shouldn't say easy. It's a lot easier to add on whenever you have a solid, sturdy, like basement. Right? You have a solid, sturdy foundation that you can build on top of, rather than like a crooked on a hill, like in a hurricane foundation to build on. Right. So what the whole alpha weekends were and what we've been doing so long for testing was getting that foundation, like in that cornerstone, really sunk in, really placed firmly, and try to work out as many kinks as possible. And moving towards early access, the goal is definitely to make the game more marketable, more fluid, and more like just enjoyable. Because I think that a lot of people may disagree with me. I think that the gameplay right now in Fault, like performance aside, visual fidelity aside, the raw gameplay is right there with Paragon. It is the same characters, and the way that they've paced the game, in my opinion, is way better than Paragon was paced. Mm-hmm. But it's just the thing that Paragon had was the camera shakes, the feedback, that AAA millions of dollars of like assets and lighting. But I think that everyone's gonna be thoroughly surprised and happy here soon with what they're doing.
Ooh, it kind of gets me real excited. I'm so excited for this overhaul. They've been talking about it for over 2 months, and something tells me we'll be seeing probably like something about the game within a month. I would say within a month is what I'm guessing, and I'm excited. So that pretty much does it for Act 1 there, guys. So Act 1 was just supposed to be a little intro, get some personal questions in about Reverb and Sockcap. But Act 2, we're going into the topic of death. Not death, oh my god, just depth. Depth. And so we're just going to start with the most open-ended question you can ask about it. Why is depth important to a MOBA? And yeah, that's it. So whoever wants to chime in can just chime in.
Because
You got it. You got it, Dad.
It's. I mean, I think that depth is important in any sort of PvP game, right? But like, MOBAs are just kind of, at least like League and Dota anyway. That's kind of what they strive for, right? It's like almost like an onion. You know, there's that initial layer that you get through, and then you realize that there's more to it, and you get into that layer, and then you peel that back, and then there's another one. So, I mean, I think that those things are important because if it's, I don't know how to necessarily phrase it, but you know, generally most of them are free to play games, right? So there's got to be like something that keeps the attention of the people, right? So the gameplay most certainly is very important, but the depth too is kind of what keeps people continuously playing and trying to improve and strive to better their play and their all that stuff. Ranked is also goes hand in hand with that. I think ranked is pretty important. Like if you're gonna create a deep game, then you probably want to add some form of ranking so far. And if I'm going to go back to like talking about like Melee, right? That game came out in 2001. The depth that's in that game is not intentional, and it was found, you know, later on when people were playing it, messing around. The gameplay was fun, so people stuck around, and then they saw that there was this insane depth to it, more so than any other kind of well, not more so than any other fighter, but it had a different type of depth to it, different flow to the game, and it was as deep as any of the most complex fighters out there. So, and that's why people still play it today, you know, and it's 19 years old, right, in the game. So, I mean, there's literally no online play, you know. People drive or get plane tickets to go to a tournament where they're probably going to get O2'd, you know, or not even get out of pools, but they love it so much that they continue to do that. So,
yeah,
I mean, that to me shows me that any game can, you know, succeed as long as there's some depth to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we definitely saw importance of depth with the inevitable end of Paragon due to the lack of ranked, and with every update it seemed just trying to oversimplify the game rather than give the player any reward for really delving too deep into it and just making it a little more complex.
Katros. Okay, it's Sock. This would be a question for you. So they don't have some kind of emulator, so that there's some kind of online play for Melee at all.
Well, they do have online play now, but that didn't come till much later.
Oh, okay.
So,
guys, and that's crazy. Think about it. Like 19 years ago, that game was created, and simply because of some unintentional mechanics which are in the game, which are extremely frame perfect to learn, some of them. So it's very challenging to learn. Because of that, the game is surviving, and it's actually only getting bigger. So that is like the best example of what is of depth in a game. So I always come from Call of Duty, guys, and I'm always going to bring it up. Do you know why there's a new Call of Duty every year? Because the game has no depth. That's why. So they make a new game to change it up. That is what they call depth in Call of Duty. Now you could argue you could probably get a 2 or 3 years out of a COD to be in reality, but as long as they're making big bucks, they're going to keep putting it out every year. But that's the point of it, and it's actually crazy I really enjoyed the part where you said it was unintentional, because there's that League of Legends documentary on Netflix at the moment, and it's actually the same thing. Like when League of Legends, which is a MOBA, they created this because there was essentially some ARAM game mode in Dota 1 that was the 3-lane idea that League of Legends and Dota 2 is. And it was just considered like a party game, like a casual game, but League of Legends decided, because so many people liked it, they decided to make that their game. And the idea of like freezing lanes, pushing your lane, crashing your lane, slow pushing it, like that was not meant to be a part of League of Legends, but it is, and that was there right from the beginning. In fact, the game was meant to be extremely simple and easy to play for newcomers, but it actually ended up being a complete 180 for League of Legends. And that game was in development for 3 years before it became full release for the public. So that's and that game's going 11 years now, and 14 years in total if you consider its development process. And that to me, it just shows why depth is important. Now, maybe year 1 you don't want to have as much depth as year 10, you know what I mean? But to put it in there so that people have something to learn, so the game doesn't get stale, that there's always something to improve, I think that's what it is. Because if there isn't something to improve on, it's gonna be more so about if you're hot or if you're cold, and that's gonna decide if you have a good game or not. If that makes any sense.
Well, I mean,
Right.
even
Yeah.
look at CS:GO, for example. Like, think about how difficult it would be for somebody brand new right now to get into competitive CS:GO.
Yeah, they would get pooped on.
And again, it's not an overly complex game, but it's the fact that you're able to find these perfect examples of just like player skill that really pushes the competitive scene of it. Like it's literally, it's not leveling up a character in game, it's almost leveling up yourself and just being a better player than the opposite team.
Well, I have an interesting analogy. That so this is just an irrelevant plug, but I play like pretty high level competitive Overwatch, and I have like a coach for where I play at, and he said the main differences between a game in real life, such as like basketball, and a game like Overwatch or Fault or a video game, is that what the rules are in basketball, it tells you what you can't do. So you can do whatever you want on the basketball court, right? As long as you don't break these X amount of rules, okay? Now, in a video game, it's the complete opposite. You can only do what these rules, and rules meaning like constraints of the game, allow you to do. So in the sense that they're completely opposite, they're exactly the same, right? It's about doing as much as you physically can within the constraints you're given. And the beauty about a MOBA is that it's not like you just ship the game. So, like 10 years ago, whenever Call of Duty came out, you use Call of Duty a lot. Like, let's say Modern Warfare came out. Realistically, how much was that game changing in the next like 2 years after its release? Right, like not much. They may add like the first map pack ever or whatever, but whoop-de-doo, right? So you can add characters, you can add game modes, you can change the map, you can constantly buff and nerf characters, you can add new items, and like that's the beauty of like a MOBA, is that like the platform of how the game can evolve is just to take so many different turns and twists. So having a game be in depth doesn't just mean be complicated. Usually they're like hand in hand, because obviously the more complicated something is, the harder it is to do, and the harder something is to do, people are gonna get better at it, and people are gonna want to get good at it, and the people that invest their time to get better at something, like let's take something very fundamentally simple, like a CSing, like a farming in Fault, right? Like there's gonna be an inherent difference between how I farm and someone that has never played the game farms, right? So I've taken hundreds of hours to like essentially practice farming just by doing it, and I still can get way better at farming. Like I miss CS all the time. It just happens, and you could scale that up infinitely, like till you are hitting every single minion like physically possible. You can get better at it, and that's just like a very simple like explanation or example. But like jungle pathing and how you when you gank, when you invade, your what items to buy, like it's just so much you could possibly think about. And the beauty of having characters is that you play Call of Duty, everyone's the same character, like with different. The guns are different, right? But they all kill people relatively the same speed.
I'm gonna tell
right?
you, like in this new COD in particular, why it's actually considered the worst competitive COD, probably of all time. Because number one, the map doesn't make sense, so there's actually no like skill when it comes to spawn trapping anymore because of the spawns. So that got eliminated in this year, and because of they decided that they were going to change the way they make maps this year. So there's like a big thing about 3-lane maps. Sometimes you'll see 4-lane maps, but they just changed that this year. So instead of having lanes, they'll have buildings. But you went from having three ways that you had to watch to watching 14 ways, which is just physically impossible. So then now it's a bit more about luck than anything. And the new Call of Duty also has an issue where it's supposed to run at 60 frames, but because of the Activision servers, it actually runs at 12 frames on console. And because of that, you can knee slide around a corner. And because you're playing at 12 frames, you literally will be able to see the person before they can see you, and you'll get like the first 3 bullets before they even see you. And that's like, so the new COD, more so than anything, is just about knee sliding around the corner, knowing how to slide cancel is what it's.
You talking about like tick rate? No.
Yeah. So
frame
like,
rate. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So 12 frames would be like unbearable.
No, I'm saying that's what it's running at.
Like,
yeah, it's
okay.
absurd. It's absurd.
Well, but yeah, I mean, I've played Modern Warfare, but I was just using Call of Duty as like a reference because you like have talked about it a lot.
Yeah.
But what I was saying is like, when I use Call of Duty as an example, is like every gun essentially does the same thing. It kills people, right?
Yeah.
The thing about like MOBAs is that different characters do distinctly different things and like have distinctly different ways they like interact with the game. So like if I'm jungling and I'm playing Steel and I'm going against Chimera, like there's distinct things I know I can do to like counterplay that Chimera. Yeah. But if I'm playing Countess and jungle and I'm going up against a Drux, like that's a completely different way of playing the game, and like that game is gonna play out entirely differently than the game I would be playing on Steel, right? So like you can just infinitely learn. Like you can learn knowledge about the game, or you can learn like what characters do, how to do what. Like you can put yourself in other people's shoes the more you play the game. Like I don't play jungle really. Like I play a decent amount of jungle games, but like I'm a carry player. But like I've played the game enough to like kind of be able to guess where junglers are on the map and like when people are rotating, like relatively, like how long it's gonna take and things like that. And that's just like fundamental things that we built on. But yeah, that's my TED talk.
And I just want to bring up Unorthodox's point there. He just said, like, in Dota, they just recently introduced jungle items, apparently. And because of that, it's like a completely different game this year. This season.
Yeah, that's one thing that's always nice about MOBAs too. It's constantly evolving. So,
yeah.
Even if you play like a meta that you don't necessarily enjoy or whatever, then or something is broken that that isn't being addressed and it's kind of off-putting, then that's one of those things where, uh, you know, you can come back later on and it will be hopefully fixed by then. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
changed.
My
So
yeah, and one thing before we get in kind of to like into deeper points, one thing I would really love to see more so in Fault, and I'm almost certain it's gonna happen. You just got to give it some time. Peace. Okay. I would love to see where each role has more depth, so that like I love the idea that each role has like their own individual goals they need to achieve, so that they are viable come mid game or viable come late game or whatever it may be. You know, like macro play essentially. And that's where I'm really excited because I remember when because we do every once in a while, we've been doing a lot more recently. We all join like the alpha chat in Strange Matter, and we all talk about different stuff. And there's one day that we talked about jungle pathing. Sockap and Dusty in particular talked about it a lot, and we were just saying about how that because we're talking about the idea of static camps, which means that every camp is different and it'll hit you at different. It'll do certain camps will do more damage to you, take more hits to kill, so on and so forth, and give you different buffs.
That's not static. That's
not
dynamic.
static.
Static. So we have static camps right now in full. They all do the same thing.
Oh, okay. Dynamic camps. My apologies.
are you good?
That's all right. And just like how that in itself will change the way certain junglers, depending on which hero you're playing, what path they want to take, so that they're maximizing their farm as well as getting there in time for that gank, and so on and so forth. And then it also becomes mind games with the other jungler, even though you might not see him for the first 10 minutes of the game, which is really, I just think that's really cool. And I'd love to see that kind of depth right there, because that in itself means that there's like a huge skill ceiling to each hero in the jungle, and to just the jungler role in general. I would love to see that kind of depth in each role, because I play a lot of support, for example. I've been trying out mid lane a lot more recently, but I'm a main support usually, and yeah, I would love to see stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that would be good. So, sorry. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
That's all right. So, Reaver, what do you think about how would you add depth to the item shop, for example?
Well, right now more items like the current items that are in the game are just kind of like the bare necessities of what you need. Like you need to have at least one option for every stat, and like there is some like more niche items that are I guess like cool, I guess, and more unique uses. But there needs to be more like items that counter certain things. And when I say counter, I don't mean like I don't want it to be like rock paper scissors. Like I buy this item and I win this interaction because I buy this item. But just like if I'm playing carry and I want a little bit of armor, like I should be able to have a item that gives me like damage or attack speed and a little bit of energy armor or a little bit of physical armor. So stuff like that will come. They did a lot of the actives first that they want, I think, because it's pretty easy to implement passives, from what I've heard, like passive items. But that, and I'd also want more the affinities, I guess. So, like the affinities are the things you pick before the game starts. And I know that's like a very, very simple system they have right now, and like the end game plan for that is to have it be a pretty good, intricate system of how to really like customize your experience.
Yeah, so for everyone watching that only ever played Paragon, for example, you know how in Paragon, before version 42, we were working with the cards, so you'd build your decks. But because we were building decks and there was just a certain limited amount of cards for each color, what ended up happening is there was an optimal build that you would build every game with maybe a few optional items thrown in. And then after version 42, they actually simplified it to where you only had 3 cards, and it just got more simple. So there was an optimal build, and there's always going to be a meta build or optimal build. Like, don't get me wrong, that's going to happen. But the point with this item shop and why Paragon was the only person to use a card system like that, to where every other mobile uses an item shop, is because there needs to be a counter to an optimal build, and there needs to be more than one optimal build, depending on which heroes you're playing. I'm about to sneeze. Give me 1 second. Where was I? So there needs to be more than one optimal build, and there needs to be room for an off build, but can still work. So that's why Fault has moved its way into an item system, because now there's going to be room for counterplay, and it's not just going to be everyone running the same deck. You know what I mean? For every hero, or for ADCs or whatever it may be. There's always slight difference, but in the bare bones of it,
and that already exists like a lot actually. You change your build a lot based on like enemy team comp and who's like strong.
Yeah, exactly, and that's where Fault is doing. They're doing something different. Thank you for the follow, the Doctor XX. I'm glad you're enjoying the stream. So that's where Fault is doing something different than Paragon. So yes, I agree. The deck system was fun. I hated grinding for the early game attack damage cards, but that's beside the point. But now with Fault, they're moving away from that, so that you now can be more creative with your build, and that there's going to be a skill to building your items. Because every game, depending on which hero you're playing, or where you are in the game, or how the enemy team's doing, you're doing, the cards you choose might change, and that's one thing that Fault is doing differently. And it's going to bring in more depth.
Yeah, for sure. Whatever heroes you're going against, you're gonna have to actively like check their builds and stuff during the game. Those types of things it's going to be pretty paramount. Somebody stacking armor, obviously you're going to want to build pen, because I'm going to tell you from the first-hand experience, it feels pretty bad playing against somebody who's got a bunch of HP and armor and not having any pen items as an ADC. And Fault, for a while when we didn't have any pen items, it was rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but like, just to like show an example of like how they're wanting to add items, like the first like big items that they added were the pen items, and they did 2 different pen items that both are like circumstantially different. So like the one pen item is more flat pen, so it's for like squishier targets with less armor.
Yeah.
And then there's another item that has a percent pen that increases. So like that percent pen that increases is for like tank busting kind of. So like it's up to you if you're building pen, like, hey, which one do I need? Do I need to be focusing the squishies more and just like trying to like 3 or 4 shot them, or do I need to like try melting these tanks while my mage takes care of like the ADCs? And it's just simple things like that, like that you have to like essentially make a decision on. It's unoptimal just to like mindlessly build the same thing every game in Fault.
Yeah, and I'm just really happy about that, because that's just gonna add more skill. It's gonna make it. It does make it more complicated, but it shouldn't be that bad, especially if they have an internal matchmaking system, which I do believe they do, even for public. You shouldn't ever feel like you're getting pooped on because someone is just using better items than you. If they're doing a better job with their items.
If anything, it'll be because they have like more items, or they're just better. Like
Yeah.
It's not going to be. It won't be like, wow, I physically can't win because this guy built this item. It's more like, okay, this guy has 300 more. Like 300's bad. This guy has 50 more CS than me and 2 more kills. Like, and has died twice less than me. He's gonna probably like roll me over. Like,
Yeah. And the next thing I wanted to talk about in with depth is this is I put down AP/AD. So that's not what it would be called in Fault, but that's what it would be called in League of Legends. So AP meaning attack power, so basic attack damage. And then AD is attack damage, AP is ability power. So
Yeah.
in Fault it would be your magic damage and your physical damage.
Well, it's power and ability power, is what they're titled. But unlike Paragon, like you gotta kind of get away from the thought that it's like auto attack damage and like ability damage. So like Muriel, for example, like has ability damage, auto attacks, and like some characters have abilities that do physical and energy
Yeah.
damage. So you have to think of like physical and energy rather than
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why I put this down as a point is because I remember being in the Strange Rider Discord, and this was like the second day the website came out. There was someone in the Discord that was saying, why is it that his basic attack and all of his abilities do physical damage besides his ult? Why does his ult do energy damage? And they said, that just doesn't make sense. And like at face value, it doesn't make sense. And that's a good argument. But I came in the chat, gave him my 2 cents, and then Sockcap came in right after that and gave his 2 cents. I don't know if you remember this Sockcap or not.
Yeah, I kind of remember him, that guy
Yeah.
talking on Discord.
So I'm of the belief that if someone has a concern, then there's multiple people that have a concerns. You know what I mean? For every one person that thinks this way, there's probably another 10 that just aren't saying it verbally or writing it down that are thinking that way. And so my 2 cents about it is, for someone like Greystone, for example, they could have made it so that all his abilities did physical damage. But that would make it more simple. And what I mean by that is, when it comes to your item building now, you're only going to choose item cards. But because there is like an imbalance directly in his kit, and it's not saying that he's going to be worse, and that's what because he has energy damage as one of his abilities, it doesn't synergize with the rest of his kit the way you would think it would. It doesn't mean he's going to be worse. It just means that you're going to have to be more meticulous with the items you build and when you're going to dive that tower, because it is his ult, to get that respawn, for example. And that's what I think, and that's where, when it comes to attack damage or physical and energy, that's where I really like the idea that Fault's going with, is there's going to be a bit of depth when it comes to that, because it comes into everything. You need to know your item building, you need to know when to use your abilities, and so on and so forth. And you can't just, well, you can, I suppose, but it's probably not going to be a good idea to just have 5 items of just physical damage. Maybe you want 1 item to be physical and do a little bit of energy penetration or whatever it may be. So what is your guys' thought on that?
Go ahead, Reaver. I'm not too big on the technical stuff, so I'm not a good person to ask for that.
Yeah. I can pull up, hang on, if I can find it. If I can find it, actually, this is a long time ago, and this chat kind of gets crazy.
Did we lose Reverb?
Did we lose Reverb?
Is he gone?
He's going to get some water.
He's going to get some water.
Yes.
right here, Doug. What's up?
Can you hear what we were saying?
I was grabbing some water.
So we're talking about, so the example we were giving is how in Greystone's kit at the moment, all his abilities, besides his ult, does physical damage, and how it just makes it, you have to be a bit more, you just have to be a bit smarter with the items you decide to build and how you're going to level up your item, and the pathing you choose to level up your abilities, and so on and so forth.
Did you guys read Greystone's new ult?
I did, yeah. You get to choose where it's going to happen.
So personally, I'm a fan of it being a ability power or energy damage because I'm not trying to get hit by a tactical nuke every time he ults. So
I just heard some weird noise.
Sorry, I thought that I hosted you, but I didn't realize that you can't host. I thought I went offline, and I did not. So now I am hosting you. I apologize.
That's
my
all right.
friend.
Thank you for the raid there.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah. So why I wanted to bring it up is because there's people out there, and you guys, and if you're one of those people watching the stream right now, it is understandable to think this way. I'm not trying to shit on your opinion or anything, but I just wanted to try to give my 2 cents and to higher level players that have a bit more knowledge about MOBAs and Fault than I do, and see what their opinion is too. So what someone was concerned about is because it's energy damage, it just doesn't synchronize in his kit, and it's going to make his item building weird. So it's just going to make him inherently worse. When in all reality, that's not the case at all.
yeah, like when have you ever played Greystone and been like, damn, I wish my ult hit harder? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Not,
Like,
it's not really his point or his role, you know.
Yeah.
So, but so wait, it's physical damage that gets converted into energy or magic damage, correct? Isn't that how his ult works right now?
Actually, we'll just pull it up. We'll pull it up, and I'll see.
this website's so nice, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it scales off your energy power, but like it has really high scaling. It's like it. I think it wouldn't be that like unviable of a like path to go for like kamikaze Greystone, where you're just like let's say you had 300 AP, like at max level, that's like 800 or 900 damage.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, you could. I mean, you could do that. That's the nice thing about like, for one thing, it offers like a little bit of diverse like damage types. I don't know if that's necessarily like what they are intending for Greystone in particular, but like anybody that has like mixed damage is always like kind of harder to itemize against. But if you have like AP scalings and like AD scalings on moves that are different, right? It kind of opens up the door to have like some interesting builds or maybe some fun and unique builds. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you see it all the time in League where somebody takes a typically like AD champ and builds them like full AP, and then they have like one ability that just like absolutely smacks, and the other ones just don't do anything.
Yeah.
You know
So,
what
Katros, as your just question there. So different builds, if your ult is a safety in case you need it, or you're going to be more aggressive and plan on popping it and doing damage with it. I like it. Yeah. So that's it. Essentially, what it's trying to say is it even adds depth to the character. Right at what you're gonna do. So one thing I've learned, I've only played a little bit of League of Legends, guys. Like I'm a total noob at it. I don't even think I have 4 hours of gameplay on the game yet. And one thing I learned, especially from watching Reverb and Sock streams, is that in League, sometimes it might be a better decision to build a character that the meta might be to build him physical damage with your items. But this game, you're going to do energy damage because of who your off lane is. And Sockcap is notorious for doing an off...
AP sign, baby.
Yeah.
No, I do AD sign. I don't build him tank. I build him like an assassin.
So that
good
same
top.
idea is now
When I
being
feed.
brought into Fault. So for all the new viewers that just joined in, this is the Faultarian Journal, number 8. This is our 8 weeks in a row. We're in Act 2. And we got 2 special guests. We got the poster boy of Fault, Reverb, and we got the man, the myth, the legend himself, Sockcap.
Hey, thank you.
And they're here to share with us their thoughts and opinions about certain topics and certain discussions. So yeah, so that is more so the idea. So it is coming. And as you can see on the screen, and this is the example we're working with right now, is if you read these abilities, all of these do physical damage, with the exception of his ult, does ability damage, and how that, even though it doesn't at first look like it synchronizes, it actually adds depth to the character, because he's going to be just as good as even if he did physical damage. It's just going to be a bit more skillful, and when you decide to pop it, and so on and so forth. And it can also be more skillful because, let's say someone's building a lot of physical armor, you know what I mean? Because you're going mano a mano against the offlaner. Well, now you have an ability that they might not have as much energy armor, so now you have one ability that might be really beneficial to use against that specific character, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I'd recommend looking at the website for stuff like this, because it has like the actual percentage scalings and like damage values, so you can actually see like the hard numbers of what's. It's just playfault.com.
Yeah, I'll find it. Give me 5 seconds.
But because like a really good reference for like we were talking about depth earlier and like different damage types. Like it's not different damage types. So if you're like Kwong's kit, he's got a new E, and you could play Kwong in like very different ways based on like how his kit kind of works now, which is interesting.
Okay, so what would be an example there? I'm pulling up Kwong.
So his E used to be what his passive is now. So every character got a passive added.
Yeah.
So Kwong's E, if you read it, so it has 2 different forms, but essentially it's armor shred.
Mm-hmm.
So you can like build him full like ability damage essentially, and like armor shred people and like chunk, right? But then you're sacrificing that like tanky engage, but also his right click scales the shield scale on his right click that you get. So like so the more health you have, I think it's health, the more the shield scales, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. Well, so what ability are you talking about? His R&B?
His E and his R&B. So his E like specifically scales for shredding energy armor.
Yeah, plus 70% energy armor as energy damage. If his sword is on the battlefield, yeah. Power of the Heavens shreds energy armor on targets hit. And there's R&B, which is his same R&B that it was before.
Well, half of it. Half of it's the same.
Okay.
If he's holding,
energy power again.
yeah, if he's holding his sword, he gets the shield. If he's got the sword out when he R&Bs, then it's the standard what it was before.
Yeah,
like a new.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, so you could like build him completely like 2 fundamentally different ways. Like you could go like that full tank bruiser kind of build and still have like the utility of his kit with like the tether and the slows and stuff. Or you could go for like that assassin like burst engage. Because if you think about it, if you tether someone, his new E works kind of like it's like a lightning strike comes from his sword to his hands. So like if you tether someone, you can E them, like right click them and alt them, and if you're building like full ability power, it does a lot of damage. Like it chunks. So it's just things like that they're adding to the game that I'm really excited for, because they're keeping the identity of the characters, but like just making the kits have a little higher skill ceiling and be more interactive.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to talk about like some of the other changes that have been made to certain characters? I can't. I don't know what's been.
If it's on the
Talked about-
website, you can talk about
It's
it.
all on the website. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so like Sparrows is a good example, right? A lot of the characters that had like passives built into their kits already. Well, a lot of characters that had passives as an ability that you had to level up, those are now their actual passives, right? So and also like adding a passive to a character just makes it like more complex, just naturally, which is great. So, Sparrow's passive is now her stacking damage, right? Every time she hits a consecutive auto
Yeah.
on a target, she gets increased damage, right? So instead, the ability that they added to replace her passive ability, it's now just her passive, is the hunter's mark or whatever. So she marks a target, and I think it is based off of her next auto. So
Yeah, it
she
empowers
uses
her basic.
empowers her next auto, and then when she hits that target, they get marked. When they're marked, then she stacks, I think, twice as fast against that character. I think is the rate that she stacks
Yeah.
at.
And it gives you like a baseline extra, like just flat stacks.
Right. So you get the extra stacks initially, plus you're gonna hit full stacks relatively quickly, especially if you build like attack speed. I imagine that she's probably gonna shred
Guys, I'm just saying,
pretty
Sparrow's
pretty
kit
hard.
looks nuts. Like, she looks like
Yeah.
she's gonna hit
Yeah.
you like a Mack
But-
truck.
The other
The thing
thing that
is-
they added to her though is that her piercing shot, if you hit somebody that's marked with that hunter's mark, then that's now a slow. So if you hit somebody with a piercing mark, you can slow them. So you have a little bit more utility in that kit, but then it's also just based off of your skill. Because obviously, if you whiff the hunter's mark or the piercing shot, then you're not going to have any form of self heal at all.
It's at
Not
the bottom of the E, Stranger.
So all that stuff's like pretty neat, and constantly are talking to us about hero kits, what we would like to see changed on certain hero kits. Like Reverb said, they're going to keep the kind of identity of each champ, but they're going to change the kits up to make them, at least some of them, slightly more complex, slightly more geared toward like a specific type of thing that this character is good at doing, and not so like wildly fucking busted, right? Like some characters, like I'm gonna say, this is just me talking right now. This isn't anything definitive, but I'm gonna say that, like, for example, Wraith Rewind, that thing's probably gonna get reworked in some way, shape, or form, because that move was insanely strong in Paragon, incredibly busted, right?
Castros, I would recommend League of Legends. It definitely has completely different mechanics than Fault does, but the actual MOBA tactics and the macro knowledge and stuff, that's gonna be the best to play.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the mechanics, I think, in League are probably going to be similar to. It's a little bit different because
it's like the input method is different,
right.
But like the fundamentals are all right there.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, for sure, macro wise, knowing where to be on the map at a certain time, knowing how to econ well and make sure that, you're always trading well. If you're getting poked in lane, you're always like farming, and once again, keeping track of timers and trying to take like favorable trades, whether it's damage wise or gold wise, whenever you can. Then that's kind of League kind of puts you into that mentality, because you can definitely, you don't have to run around and kill each other all the time. You can definitely just out macro a team and win.
Yeah, one thing I'm hoping Fault will get there, and they're not there yet because of the Paragon assets weren't there at all. But you know how in League, because I have so many characters, you could say that there's like a kind of like a hyper tank, a hyper mid, a hyper jungle, a hyper carry kind of thing, so that every role has the ability to carry if they do well enough. If that makes any sense.
Oh, Fault's definitely like that.
It is like that?
100%.
That's something I'm really excited for. So that if you truly excel in your lane, to the point that your micros are changing, your micros are becoming your macros in a sense. And if, for people who don't know what we mean, so macro, when we talk about macro, that would be like game decisions that have a strong impact on the game. So a macro decision would be, okay, I'm going to rotate to go help out this team fight. And that rotating decision would have a huge change on that team fight because there's an extra person there. To where your micros would be something as you're making sure you're hitting every last hit on your minions in your lane so that you're not missing any farm.
Yeah, I think your micro is more like essentially focused on your character, right? Like the mechanics of your character and all that stuff. And that's generally what everybody will learn in a MOBA like fairly well if they play enough, especially if they like a certain character and they kind of one trick that character. You'll learn how to micro well. Like you'll learn like how to space, how to I say that you will, but there's a lot of people in the Paragon community that never really learned that. But the thing that separates like good players from the best players is the macro, right? At a certain point, you get to a certain proficiency with your character where, and at least in gameplay wise, that like nobody's gonna be like missing any abilities. People are gonna be like using them at correct times. People are gonna all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna utilize their character to pretty much its fullest potential, and that's going to be everybody in the game. The thing that once again separates the good players from the bad players is going to be more of the macro, how they econ, the trades that they take, the decisions that they make, and all that stuff. So
to kind of build on what he said, I'd say like any player can essentially hit like maybe the top like 5 or 10% of like a skill like threshold. So like essentially anyone can like get decent enough to where they can like mechanically be good if they want to, like, if they put in the work or have like kind of some talent or use their big brain, But like going from like that 90%, like if we're going from 0 to 100, right? Like 90 is where you want to be. Going from 90 to 100 mechanically is just as hard as it was going from 0 to 90. Like getting that little itty bitty edge is really important. It's like having like nearly perfect aim and like complete efficiency over your champion or your character is going to be important. But like just you can from behind, like you don't even have to be ahead. You can dictate a game into your favor, like by just knowing how to play the game, like fundamentally from a macro sense.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. And probably the last point of Act 2 that I wanted to talk about is what how do I word this? What would be when it comes to depth, how would you say that there's a depth in rotating a character, if there is at all? Like true on just rotations.
I mean, it's essentially like an investment of your time, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're like the mid laner and you see that there's like a scuffle going on in your duo lane, like you could pressure this tower, you could get this farm, you could roam around, like push something for the map, or you could take that like calculated decision to go and like help that fight, like rotate for that fight.
Yeah.
So it's very like circumstance. Like there's no one's gonna be able to like write a guide that's like, if X happens, you do this every time. Like it comes down to game sense and like knowing fundamentally, like trusting your gut, but your gut can't like be lying to you. Like your gut's got to know what it's talking about. So.
Yeah. So why I wanted to make this point is because in Paragon, it seemed for the most part that it was, if there's a team fight, you rotate. You want to be there. But because the way Fault is set up and because farm is going to be so important and such like that, yes, there may be moments, and it's all going to be circumstantial, of course. There may be moments where maybe you don't want to rotate to that team fight because you're about to take this tier 1 or tier 2 tower, for example. So that's where Fault is doing something a lot more different than Paragon did, where there's going to actually be depth to the rotations, because sometimes it might not be worth your time to rotate because you're about to miss a bunch of farm that is way more beneficial for your character, for example, depending on what role you're playing.
Sorry, I'm sorry. What was the question again?
I didn't really word it as a question.
It's
But,
no, it's not your fault. I'm. This room is like super hot, and I'm just sweating
PD
my ass
Kane,
off.
when it comes to Fault, Strange Matter has set a tentative date for June / early July is what it's looking like right now. Is when the game's going to come up, but there's no exact hard concrete date at the moment, because depending on how much they get done, it might come out a bit earlier, it might come out a bit later, so on and so forth.
I think, like Reverb said, I think it'll be sooner than later. So
Yeah,
we'll
really
see.
excited for that.
But things are
So, well, what I
are
was
moving along.
for the rotating, just to word into a question, I was thinking about it as, because the importance that they're putting into farm and taking towers and all that stuff in Fault, it might not always be a good decision to be like, okay, there's a team fight, let's rotate. Because it might be more important to get that farm so you can get ahead of the carry or get that tower or whatever it may be.
It wasn't like that in Paragon. Like, Paragon was like had less like MOBA elements than Fault does, yes, but like it still was a MOBA. Like that just kind of depended on like your like skill level and like what like level you're playing the game at. But like it wasn't just like a team fight simulator. Obviously like lower elos.
It kind of was, dude. At higher elos, it kind of was too. Like,
but less than like I think that you're making out to be, though.
I don't know. I remember getting flamed at like level 2 when my mid laner rotated to off lane and killed the off laner after I pinged the guy like 5 times that he was rotating, and then I got flamed for not rotating. It's one of those things where like if your laner is rotating, like you should rotate. I'm sure like that guy probably should have like listened to my pings, because I was like spam pinging him like, hey dude, he's coming to off lane, right?
Yeah.
And this is at high elo, right? This is on my main account, so this is at the MMR cap. I can't remember the guy's name, who it was. I want to. It was Soliv. It was Soliv is who it was. So that's the guy that died to that gank. So this is one of those things where it's like you kind of were expected to rotate with your laner like at any given point in time. As laning was kind of like somewhat optional. Of course, like farming was still like important and stuff, but rotation times were so low. And we've gone over this before in Paragon, at least in version 42. And the other versions it was less of a team fight simulator, but in 42 it was definitely a kind of like just fight all the time, team fight all the time. That's all you did. There wasn't any like,
as long as you're winning your team fights, you're winning the game.
Right. And there wasn't any like huge depth to it, but the way it worked with like the gyms and buying cards, right? Like you got, if you the minions were executable, so farming became like incredibly easy. And then also, even if you missed those minions, you got 60% of the gold. So essentially, like if you miss 3 minions, you're still basically getting 2 minions gold worth, right? Am I doing that right? Yeah, 180 percent, right? So you're almost getting 2 minions of gold. So and then having to spend like 1,000 gold to buy a stat point. Let's say you're going for a card that has that requires like 5 stat points in a certain tree or whatever, or stat. Like really, if you're out farming that guy, you're not going to get that item too much quicker than they are, because they're essentially still getting 2/3 of the gold. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of stupid the way it was set up. So in regards to your question of like rotating a fault, you just kind of have to be careful about it. I would suggest like probably early on, in because it actually has like a laning phase, like a pretty might not be as long of a laning phase as League, but it definitely still has a pretty decent laning phase. So early on, you probably don't want to rotate too much unless you are pretty confident that you'll be able to get something out of it. Um, but I think like a better way to impact the game early on is to just outplay your laners and get ahead in your lane, and then from there, try to out macro the teams, the team that you're playing against. Sorry, my son just yelled fire and ran outside, so I'm a little bit concerned. But it's just, yeah, it's a campfire. But I didn't. That came from the other edge of the house and yelled fire, so I was a little bit concerned there. But yeah, especially as like a support, right? Like if your carry's like doing well and they're ahead, like you probably want to stay with them and kind of like further that lead as best as possible. If your carry gets to the point where they're like you don't have to be with them anymore because they're just so far ahead that they're just, you know, I mean, half the time when I played with Reverb in early access, it's just like, okay, dude, like it's 8 minutes in, you've already got, like 6 kills, you've backed twice and bought, like you're probably okay, right? Like I can leave you for a little bit unattended. They're probably not gonna try to mess with you or anything like that. So in those
They always do,
situations,
dude. They always try to mess with you, dude.
in those situations you can kind of rotate, but I still wouldn't, rotate too far, I guess. So I just-
Alright. Alright. Reverb, Sockcap, Chandler, do you guys have anything else you'd like to add to that, or are we good?
I'm good
So-
with that.
The only thing I can think of, and again, this is probably come from way left field because I'm definitely a little more casual player than everyone else, but I don't know. I've brought this up a couple times, and people have had pretty polarizing opinions on it. But just on the topic of rotating, so again, being somebody who would have very little experience when it comes to any major competitive aspect of the game, how important or how much do you guys think it may help a new player sort of understand the situational need for rotating if you added something like in-game voice chat for your team as compared to text and just pings? Because somebody, you may want them, your jungle, to rotate into your lane or whatnot, but it may just not be convenient for you to ping it or anything like that. So do you guys see any real benefit to voice chat in that aspect? Or is it still one of those things that's just not that popular for people to see a need for a voice chat?
You can't really go wrong with like voice chat, but I don't know about the development of it, but I feel like it's not that necessary. There is a new ping system coming that will let you like contextually ping the map. So
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, it's like in League where you can like ping like different points on the map or whatever to
Yeah.
have somebody go there.
so you won't just have to be like, on my way right, I need help. Good job, good job, good job. Like you'll be
Yeah,
able to
after
like
you die.
you'll be able to like ping specifically on the map. You can be like danger here or like be careful or I need help like in a specific part about the
So
map.
something closer to like Apex Legends and their ping system.
Yeah, that'd be. I mean, it's gonna be very much like League's ping system. I know you said you haven't really dabbled much in other
Yeah, well, I was
MOBAs.
just thinking with Apex just because again, it's
It's
first
kind of
person,
like
so you have
Apex.
that aspect of looking around rather than just pointing at a location.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if they had like very much like Apex, like where you aim, you can ping. But the
Yeah.
thing is, like, you want to be able to ping across the map or like where you can't see is the thing as well. So like
Yeah.
being able to hold like left alt or something and like pull your cursor up, it'll be nice.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
actually like ping on the map like, hey, like I need help, and then like ping that you're going into their jungle or something like that. But I do think that like it would be nice to have like voice comms and stuff, but I mean, obviously everybody uses Discord, so it's not like that big of a detriment. But
Yeah.
I guess I like have to be careful about like who you're listening to, right? Because if you have just like some idiot just shot calling and telling you like, "Hey, we need to invade this," and it's like, dude, I have like two waves stacked up on each other, like pushing into my tower. Like I need to get this farm right. I'm not gonna go. Is this the thing? Like when we talk about farm being like pretty important, it's like 5 CS is essentially like a kill,
Kill.
right? So in gold terms, I mean, um kills are obviously like pretty important still because you kill somebody, they have the death timer, and then they have to run back to lane, so they're gonna miss like quite a bit of gold. So, but in terms of like the actual monetary value, like 5 CS is a kill and gold. So it's important to farm, and that's the thing. What I would recommend like new players do just in general is like when you first get into the game, like get a feel of the game, right? Like learn kind of the pacing and all that stuff. Try to focus on farming and just try to focus on like not dying in your lane and trying to like learn your character, right? I mean, obviously, most people probably coming into this are not going to be like fresh off the block, right? And they're not going to come into this without that prior knowledge of Paragon, at least initially.
Yeah.
Hopefully that changes further on down the road. So you probably will have some kind of preconceived notion on how to play your character, but that once again, there's little nuances. Like, for example, I don't know if it was you, Reaver, but I think it was you that figured it out. But like there's a lot of combos that you can do, like, for instance, with, like, Murdoch, he is different with his kit now in a certain sense, like, he gets that passive movement speed towards enemies that are low health, right, and he gets the little wee woo sirens going off and runs at them.
Yeah.
But he's got his push and he's got his traps. His traps are slows, but if you push somebody with his push into a trap, it becomes a stun, right? So that's something that's different that wasn't in Paragon in any iteration of his kit. So that's kind of like an interesting element. So you can actually like chain CC people with Murdoch. If somebody like Abelica lands a knockup, and Murdoch can quickly lay a trap behind her and then shove her into it as soon as she comes back down. So
Okay.
that's why I say
Yeah.
like learning how to like utilize your character as best as possible, learning how to farm and being sure that you pay attention to last hitting and just getting like competent at that, and then from that point on like worrying about other higher concepts. One thing I think that's like pretty important to do is just to like maybe look up like kind of MOBA concepts in general, like from League, for example. When I say like as a jungler, you have priority in your duo lane or your mid lane at a certain point in time. That means uh, basically that they either have more wave clear or they're just hard pushing and the other person isn't matching that hard push. So they're actively pushing your minions into the enemy tower. So in that sense, you know, you have priority in that lane. You might be able to go for like an invade or do go for an objective like raptors or whatever, because they're going to be preoccupied with farming those creeps under tower, right? If they choose to rotate while their creeps are being pushed under their tower, well then they're missing all that CS. So if they come to the fight and you guys win it, now they're kind of double fucked because they've missed out on that wave and they died, or whatever. But even if they come over there, maybe the fight doesn't go so well, maybe, a few people die on each team, they still kind of lose out because they're losing that farm that's been pushed under the tower, right? So the concepts like that, those are like more of a macro concept, right? And that's kind of like a I would say like a pretty entry level concept in League of Legends to like learn that stuff, and learning like what champions kind of counter other champions too. So when you go into a game, if you're not like some sort of one trick like I am, you can go for counter picks, or you can at least know like, okay, well this person in off lane, he's got a bad matchup, so like there's a possibility that he's gonna lose his lane or he's gonna be behind. So we're gonna have to contend with maybe a Severog or I don't even know counters to be honest, but well, maybe we're gonna have to contend with like a Fed Greystone or a Greystone that's like further ahead of our off laner, is more tanky. So what do I need to like prioritize when I build? As the game goes on, as you see stuff like that happen, just being conscious of that type of stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
K-Truck's the wee woo sirens, dude. The wee woo.
On Murdoch.
Man, I love those wee woo sirens,
Yeah.
dude.
Oh my goodness.
What's up, Mike?
Hey, Mike. Nice to see you join back.
Did you know that at your max level of your passive, so if you're running someone down like with any of your passive procs, it's based on if you're looking at them or not. But you can like strafe and look at someone that's low and move towards someone else that's not low and move faster.
That's kind of cool.
It's like
See?
you
That's
could
a little
like
tip right there, dude.
you
I
could
didn't
like
even know
backpedal or like strafe left and right while looking at someone else, but go towards like whoever you're running down. But I'm not gonna like talk about this forever. But like essentially, you don't want to have to think about playing your character. Like you want your character to be like an extension of like how you play the game. So like just getting comfortable, getting games underneath your belt, like that's pretty much the best thing you do. Like worrying about rotations and stuff like that is not something I'd like. That'll just come with time. There's no like I said, there's no guide. You just kind of know, right? It's like anything else that just comes to you.
It comes with experience and time.
Yeah, for sure. But there's ways to kind of, like I said, like, obviously the first thing you want to try to focus on is like learning how to farm and learning your character. And then as those things become second nature, then you build upon those kind of aspects of the game, right? You might start going, okay, well, this game, I feel pretty confident in playing my character and I feel pretty confident in farming. Now I'm going to pay attention to the timers, right? So I'm going to pay attention to when certain things spawn, when they were taken. And another thing that I know people in Paragon did not do that, is something that they could possibly do in this game. If there's any sort of abilities that are going to have like long cooldowns, right? Like, right now, you don't have any sums or anything like that in Fault. You don't have any summoner spells, so you don't really need to keep track of anything like that, right? But there's not that many characters in the game right now, so being able to like keep track of like when somebody uses an ultimate, because there's no way in Paragon of like pulling up your screen and seeing like what person on your team has what ultimate. Like you can, if you know. It's helpful information for you and your team, right? Let's say you pop Greystone's ult, and you know that level 1 it's 2-minute cooldown or a 2.5-minute cooldown, and you type in Greystone ult at this timer, right? Because you have a timer at the top of your screen, and then he will have ult at this timer. It's something that you could probably do pretty quickly. That would help your team out. Okay. They know now, okay, I can engage on this Greystone because he still won't have his ult for another minute. You know what I mean? So that type of stuff is important. If they add any sort of actives that have long cooldowns, if they add some sort of blink that has, minutes of a cooldown, maybe it's 3 minutes, maybe it's 5 minutes, and you see one of them use their blink, okay, Bellica used blink at this time. And then if it's a standard thing across all items, then people will be able to look at that timer that you put into the chat and say, okay, well, in 3 minutes, she's going to have her blink again. So that type of stuff.
Thank you guys for this. So we're going to call it the end of Act 2. At the end of Act 2, we always take a 10-minute break because I really need to go to the bathroom and I need to refill my cup of water because talking for this long, it makes your mouth really dry. Believe it or not. And so we're just going to take a 10-minute break there, guys. And we're going to get some music going. And stay tuned, because we will be back.
It's a little like a demon thing. I don't know. I'm just messing around with it. It's Blender.
It's like a grinder for artists.
What's that even mean?
Mike muted that whole time, so we're gonna redo that. Hey, what a flippity flop though! This is Stranger or Big Moose. This is Faultarian Journal number 8, guys. And this is the final act for the journal for the week. Thank you guys for the support. And I just did all this without my mic on, so I'm gonna keep it a bit shorter this time. So Reverb, Sockcap, and Chandler are Gotta Get Swole. Please introduce yourselves.
What up? It's Sockcap.
And it's Sockcap Stone Reverb.
Yeah,
And the swole boy.
Yeah, me again.
I'm gonna be honest, guys. If anyone knows what Mike TV, the tester, that man is buff. And
He's buff.
Chandler might be buffer.
Oh shit! Maybe Mike and Chandler have to duke it out, dude. I'm pretty sure we said it the other day. Pretty sure that Mike could like stand on your chest and grab your head and pull it off your body if he wanted to. So, it's a pretty strong boy.
Yeah.
Goddamn.
So for anyone that doesn't know who Reverb and Sockcap are, they are a special guest for today. Shout out to them. Go follow them on Twitch. Go follow them on Twitter. Send them lots of love. They are testers for Stream Runner Studios and Fault. Reverb is now known as the poster boy for Fault, as some of the people put it. And Sockcap is just the man, the myth, the legend himself.
Thank you. The poster boy with the Ask Me Anything on Reddit. The most amazing Reddit thread
What can I
I've
say,
seen.
dude? What can I say?
Wait. I mean, you can mention it, but I'm not going to, because we are streaming. If you want to mention it,
I do want to mention it.
All right, guys, we're going off a little bit of tangent. We're going to have a bit of a story time about Reverb there now.
Oh, I'm just gonna say the first comment there on that thread was, "Who the fuck are you?" Something like that. Should I care? Question mark. Shit was funny.
Reverb, do you want me to tell this story?
Go for it, dude.
All right, guys. So
Bunch of simps on Reddit.
So for anyone that doesn't know who Reverb is, because most people don't. No offense to him. No offense to him. But he went on his first post ever on Reddit, on the Paragon subreddit, was, "I'm the #1 ADC or something in Fault. So if you have any questions, please come to me and ask me." And he got the most hate I've ever seen out of anyone ever on that Reddit.
Maybe not as much as the Cheeto, but yeah, you did get a good bit there. So
Yeah.
it's definitely entertaining, though,
Yeah.
for sure.
It's a publicity stunt.
Reverb meant it with kind-heartedness, but it ended up being a mega troll very fast.
You're gonna be like the Leffen of the Fault community, dude. And just have that villain going on.
That's cool with me, dude.
So
Yeah, so to get back on track, guys, so Act 1, we just had a little introduction of who Sockcap and Reverb are and a few of their goals. We never got to the extra topic, unfortunately, but they're only there if we need more stuff to talk about. Act 2, we talked a bit more of death, and we transitioned into what is our third topic. Sorry, guys, I keep burping now. I must have drank my water too fast. Which is roles. So we want to talk about roles. And specifically what the point of this Act 3 is Sockcap and Reverb are pretty good players. And I highly suggest that you listen to what they have to say and truly consider it when it comes to Fault. And yeah, so we just wanted to talk about that. Try to see if you can give you any tips and tricks, or if there's anything you guys would like to specifically talk about, just mention it in the chat there, and of course we'll bring it up. Yeah, so first things first, roles. So if I'm not wrong, Reverb, you like to main ADC.
Yeah, you could say that.
So what?
He's a Murdoch one trick dude.
That's false, but
So what is it? What is it for you? Why do you choose ADC over the other four roles?
well, two reasons. First off, it's fun to kill people, and reason number two is a lot of times I don't trust other people to carry the game, so I put my fate in my own hands.
Okay, and Sockcap. In my notes, I actually don't have support written down. I actually have Richter. Why do you like Richter?
He's just, I mean, he's just a lot of fun. I mean, I always like hook-based champions or champions that have like displacements because I feel like you can do a lot with those types of kits. So this is kind of interesting. And then it just when I started playing him, I was like, oh shit, this skill shot's like pretty difficult to hit. So, you know, I wanted to get good at it, and I wanted to pull off some crazy plays. So that's kind of what made Richter fun for me because it felt really rewarding when you hook somebody. And
Yeah.
sorry, somebody did just follow me from your stream. So Snag OG, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it, man. I'm just gonna let you know that I'm not streaming or anything, but you just sent me a follow.
I just said buys. Oh my gosh,
So.
the Newfoundlander in me just came out. Guys, please go follow Sockcap and Reverb at twitch.tv/ReverbOP and twitch.tv/Sockcap, just the way his name is spelled. Yeah, so you like Richter. One thing I remember, I actually was a support main. For a little bit, I tried ADC, was completely garbage. I actually got pretty good with Sparrow, but anyone else I was pretty garbage with. And I did a bit at off lane. I actually was pretty good at off lane, not gonna lie. But then I moved into support because I love being the unsung hero personally. That's just like that just to me is so rewarding. And so I started playing Richter. So I remember I actually started playing Richter after I got. Thank you for the follow, Snag. I really appreciate it. I started playing Richter after I got bored with Narbash. And I had 50 days of in-time gameplay played with Narbash. So I was, yeah, I played a lot of Narbash. And,
It's your boy.
yeah, I actually had more days played as Decker, just to say how much I played the game. Anyway, so I started playing Richter, and I remember my favorite moment with Richter was I went for this gank under 5 minutes. So there was a Gideon in my mid lane, and I told him in the chat, start throwing your abilities at him. And he was like, why? And I'm like, just do it, because we're getting this kill. And so he's like, okay, I'm gonna risk it for the biscuit. Who needs mana, anyways? And he did it, and the guy ended up using. He was Bellica, I think, and he went onto his tower, and I hooked him off his tower, and I immediately got him, and I stunned him or silenced him, sorry, and we immediately got the kill. And that was the moment I knew that I fell in love with Richter, because Richter's the kind of character that when you hit that super nasty chain, you feel like a god among men. You feel like you rule Agora.
Yeah, definitely. For sure, it's good. Richter's stood out for sure. So I remember not to like weird flex or anything, but that's all I played in like Legacy was Richter. And we got to the MMR cap, right, and at that point we started to kind of like get recognition, or we ended up playing against Myth, and he was playing Murdoch, and my buddy was playing Murdoch, and then he had a Richter on his team as a support, and we ended up dumpstering them like 3 games in a row. But the 4th game is like one of the guys that was in the one of the previous games with us,
Okay.
and he was in the lobby with us, and he was trying to play support, and then he looked in the lobby and saw who was in there, the names, and he was like, he said, "Oh, my be Sockcap and Lax Skull." He said, "I'll let you guys take duo lane." And so that was kind of cool. I was like, "Oh shit!" Like we didn't ask him or anything. He just like kind of yielded it over because he was like impressed with how we were playing. So
Awesome.
that
Yeah.
that type of stuff is fun.
And I just have it up there now, so I just wanted to bring it on over. This is just a little clip.
You just whipped and died.
Easy claps, indeed. Easy claps left and right. Like this guy, easy clap.
An enemy has been slain.
This guy, hard, dude.
The two-shot,
Enemy
dude.
has been slain.
What a fucking monkey.
An
Easy
enemy
clap.
has been slain.
Let's see the old Yaka.
Easy
Enemy
clap.
has been slain.
I'm not a league player, dude. I see that.
Give me the penta.
An enemy
Easy
has
clap,
been
penta
slain.
kill. That one's for you, Dusty.
The pinner.
Yeah, so I just wanted to show that right quick. So
Well, let me ask
Reflex.
you. Let me ask you, Reverb. Like, as a ADC player, like, what do you think is the like paramount or most important things to like learn or do in Fault playing ADC?
Farming. And not dying.
Anything else besides that, like positioning or?
I mean, you just like want to be as far as you can while still being useful. Like remember that you have like the range advantage, and you'll probably get dumpstered by like a tank if they are up on you. So like just kiting in a fight and like trying to stay alive so you can pump out as much damage. You can't do damage when you're dead.
What about like laning phase? What do you think are like important things?
So like, I mean, fundamentally like farming, but that's like a very like complicated topic. So like, trying to like farm efficiently, freeze the wave in front of your towers, so you can set your lane up for ganks. I mean, taking trades that are favorable. If you know your character power spikes at like a certain level, or your lane is strong at a certain level that your other laner's not, like the person you're laning against, you can go for like a fight and just general stuff like that.
Mhm.
Stay alive, do damage, get gold. Like it's
yeah, and that I'm glad you guys brought that up, because the first thing we're gonna talk about is what are like the basic fundamentals for each role. So I wanted to start with support and ADC. So you're saying that the fundamentals that you need to get down to be a strong ADC is you need to be good at farming, you need to be good at hitting your shots, of course. Anything else, or is that really it?
I mean, it's like it comes down to like you can say it like that, but it's like a lot more complicated than that, because like you are the primary target, like 24/7. Like everyone wants to kill you, right?
Yeah, it's true.
So like just trying to like put yourself in advantageous situations and exploit whenever people put themselves in like a disadvantaged state.
So I'd say that there's like, I don't, obviously you'd have to like push the wave to do this, but another thing to keep in mind, well, I'm sorry, you don't necessarily have to push the wave to do this, but just a general thing to like keep in mind or keep track of is like, not only do you kind of want to be keeping track of like your minions or the enemy minions health bars, just kind of want to keep track of yours, right? Because it's the same concept in League, and Reverb was talking about this the other day when he was talking to you, Stranger, about League, is that it's the same situation applies in this game. If you know that they're going for CS, if they're going for a last hit, well, they're going to be autoing that creep that can't auto you, right? So that's a perfect time to like kind of step forward and just ping them once, if you're trying to get damage on them, because they're not going to be able to, ping you back, basically. So
yeah,
that would be something that I would like keep in mind as a carry player.
yeah. And what we were saying too about how it gets more complicated than obviously just hitting your farm stuff and hitting your shots is it gets so complicated because it can be how to push your lane, would take the when you should I don't know, do that weird ADC support gank on the jungler that Sockcap argued with Dusty about for hours and faded about for hours. And
I think Dusty's probably all for that because Dusty just likes to invade nonstop. Faded's
Yeah.
the one that was.
I mean, essentially, like carries are like they kind of turn on like mid or late game. Like you're pretty weak early, but like you just want to keep yourself. Like you want to get out of your weak phase as early as possible. So like, however you got to do that safely is like the faster you can get out of early game, the better. But like, it's really good to have a good early game as carry. Like,
Right.
you essentially just kind of win the game like, if you like get fed early on carry because you just like get so ahead.
Right. That's one thing that I was gonna say is that like we were saying, you are like weaker early in general, but you have to keep in mind too that like you're also playing against a carry, right? So if you get ahead in your lane, and this goes for like any lanes, right? But you like I used to see like a lot of kind of ADCs in Paragon that were like pretty hesitant or had cold feet about like going in, even if you like got ahead in lane or like killed them once beforehand. Like, you're basically going against another carry and support, right? You have to be kind of cognizant of what those characters do, but damage wise, if you're ahead, you're gonna output more damage as a carry, more than likely. So it's one of those things where like you shouldn't be like hesitant in your lane. You might be like weaker against like their jungle or another like tanky character that probably could 1v1 you early, but in your lane, you're probably just gonna hard win the 2v2. So like don't be scared to like commit to these things, you know what I mean? So going back and buying at the right time is also like I would say pretty essential for a carry. If you get a kill early and you're able to push the wave in the tower, go back and buy and then come back to lane quickly, that way you don't miss any CS. That's also like pretty important. That's just kind of more along the lines of like wave management.
So, okay. So if we had to put it into like if this was like a tutorial video, you'd be like, step 1, hit your farm. Obviously it gets more in depth to that. Step 2, hit your shots. Step 3, take advantage.
Honestly, like hitting your shots just like it's gonna happen. Like it's more than hitting your shots is like knowing who to hit.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Yeah, who to focus.
I don't know like how in depth you want to go in this, but like,
we'll go more in depth if the time allows us as we keep going.
Okay, that's what to say. Yeah.
So what about support there, Sockcap? What do you think as, let's say I'm a brand new support, never played support before, what do I need to know to get a good start, to get off of
You don't have to worry about, buy Scrying Stone, hit I and buy Scrying Stone in your shop. For God's sakes, please do that. Because that's like the only way that you're going to get gold, right?
Yeah, so
Scrying
also
Stone also gives you wards as well.
Yeah, Scrying Stone it's a ward, and it's also an item, and it gives you passive gold for each minion that your closest ally kills. So when you're pairing up with your ADC, you'll get gold just for them getting the minion kill. So Scrying Stone's a must.
Yeah. Obviously, like warding as a sport, you want to probably like pay close attention. Like if I'm gonna try to improve as a support, I'm probably gonna watch like really good junglers and see like when they rotate, all that stuff. Like when they kind of get to the point where they're gonna go gank. So being like cognizant of that, like what time marker are most junglers gonna possibly go for like a rotation and do a lane? Where are we positioned and do a lane? Do we need to back up a little bit just to avoid being killed? That's important. Obviously, like warding is important as well. I would say like playing support with Reverb is like fairly easy because like I've played with him a good amount and I know his play style and I know that if I, for the most part, if I land or if I initiate, he's gonna go in and commit fully. So, and I have enough faith in him to be able to, do enough damage, land enough basics to, be able to burn down whatever target we're going on.
Mm-hmm.
So like knowing who to focus, knowing when to go in, obviously like cooldowns are important as a support. If you see that the other support is use their CC, that should be a green light to just go ham, for the most part, unless they're like really far ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So, keeping track of CCs and stuff like that, making sure that, anytime you have a chance to kill, you commit to it. So that type of stuff is just, that's just kind of important just in general, right? It's not necessarily like support like oriented, but it's definitely important as a support. You're not actively like CSing, so you should have like more time to like pay attention to the map.
Yeah.
Pay attention to like enemy levels, what items they have, what cooldowns they have, all that stuff. So
in my opinion, if I was a newer support, and I also haven't played in a while, but the fundamentals for me is you gotta be very good at warding and dewarding. You have to be good at shot calling, even if you're not the shot caller. Because as Sock just said, you're not the one that has to worry about CSing, so you have more time to worry about where their enemy jungler is, where your jungle is. If they just use an ability, so you can go get the initiate and all that stuff. So you would make the call, not necessarily, of course, but you would make the call to initiate or to back off or so on and so forth. And I think
K-Trucks.
Yeah, I also think more so than anything, supports need to be really good at knowing when to use their abilities. And what I mean by that is, like, in this gameplay, you could see at one point there, like, I had enough mana to throw one thunk, and that was it. But we just got ganked by 2 people. So it was a 4v2. So, and now, I'm not saying I had the best gameplay, guys. I haven't played in 2 years. This was one weekend, so it obviously isn't that great. But one thing I was thinking in that moment, and I can tell you this for certain, is I had one thunk, and that's all I could do. And my carry was about to die, so I needed to do something. So what I tried to do is, it ended up not working, but I saw that their carry accidentally took one step too far onto our tower, so he wasn't going to get hit because he would have time to move off. But I was trying to thunk him because he's the one doing the main damage, to where the second he got on the tower, he was going to die from the tower shots, and we were actually going to get a kill, and I was going to save my carry in the process. It didn't end up working like that because my timing was a bit off, but that's what I tried to do. And you can see this. It was just a few minutes ago I tried to do this. Oh, it's going to load. That was a waste. Technical difficulties.
What's up, Meeks?
Big
So
boy.
So yeah, those things are important for sure. This is support.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about the next role? So if we go fundamentals of an offlaner, what would that be?
Offlane is a kind of unique role where it's like, obviously it's a 5v5 team game, but you're kind of in your own island for a little bit. Typically you're gonna see less ganks in the offlane. It's kind of like a war of attrition. Who can kind of outlast and farm more efficiently while going for like kills still.
Yeah.
Like offlaners are typically gonna be tanks, but obviously you could run other like characters and other builds, but you're gonna do a lot of like dictating the map from like a macro sense, because like when your team could be fighting like 3v3 or 4v4 in mid, if you're split pushing and like taking towers, you're just gonna win the game for your team. And yeah, like me said, like split pushing, farming, rotating, like the farther you can get ahead and like just come up when you do kind of team fight and just start rolling people, it's kind of the goal is offlane. You just don't want to feed. It's the main goal. Like, just if you're losing lane, just try to like chill out. A lot of the champs that do play offlane are just inherently kind of strong, and they don't need that much gold to function like well. Like a carry is just by nature need like, and mages just need like gold and items to like come online. But a lot of tanks and supports just have like good kits. So like, even if you're behind, like it's better to kind of like keep your enemies from getting bigger.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I would agree with you too. Especially when I saw what you're doing, sir, I was spending a lot of time trying to fix this video because my internet kind of shat the bed the second I tried to rewind it. But anyway, I got it working. And when you said that offlane is unique because it's like what you do in that lane really, really depends more on what character you're playing and what character you're going up against, because it may not be tank versus tank.
So it's a hardcore like 1v1 like matchup.
Yeah, it is.
And you could AFK farm and like be passive, or like if you know you have an advantage, or you know like you're better than who you're landing against. Like if you can just slowly take good trades, like you'll be able to all in them. And usually it only takes like one good gank or like one good outplay to like really dictate offlane.
Something that's like pretty important to keep track of. And once again, this is just like general laning stuff, but it's like I think pretty important in the 1v1 lane. So mid and off lane, especially, is like knowing how many minions it takes you to get to level 2 or level 3, depending on what your power spike is for your champ. Because this is one of those things where you can maybe, if you take a few favorable trades. You know, a lot of the champs in offlane are inherently like tanky, or have some sort of like sustainability. So that's one of those situations where it's like, okay, well, if I can take a few favorable trades like level 1 or level 2, and I know that I'm gonna hit like level 3 before him, then you can just go for the all in and burn him down. You're probably, I would say, in the off lane, not going to be able to just like straight up all in somebody and burn him down from like 100 to 0 like you would in the duo lane. That's more of just a duo lane thing and a mid lane thing. So off lane is kind of one of those things where you have to kind of whittle them down and then go for an all in as soon as you get to a certain HP threshold where you think you're going to be able to kill them.
Yeah. No, 100%. And what do you guys think? Let's move in to the jungle now. We'll leave mid for last. So what do you guys think about jungle? Like, what are the fundamentals that you need to be able to do as a jungler? If you're brand new at jungling, what would you guys recommend?
You want me to do this, or you want to do this?
Yeah, I mean, you play jungle more than me, so...
I mean, jungle's like a unique role. Jungling is pretty easy in Fault. Just because like how the items and the champions are, but you just want to, your first clear is super important. What I mean by clear is like your first like time killing your like jungle camps is really important, doing it as efficiently and fast as possible so you can get online. And then you kind of start dictating the map. So if you're trying to power farm and play like the map's kind of quiet and not much going on, you can kind of keep your head down, power farm in the jungle, and come out up top. Inherently, you're going to get more XP and farm in the jungle if you're like clearing your stuff on cooldown. But you want to like help out your losing lanes, or you want to help your lanes win and keep your losing lanes from like really losing hard, just by keeping like the enemies in check. But the biggest thing is like just clear your buffs essentially on cooldown. How the jungle works currently right now is two minions spawn, and I think every 45 seconds an extra minion spawns.
Yeah.
So try to never let your minions be 5 camps for too long, because first off, if someone walks into your jungle and sees a juicy ass 5 camp, like that's so much gold you're giving them, and that's not what you want. But also, like, if a camp has 5 minions and you wait like another minute, that it's not like 6 minions are gonna come. You just essentially lost out on more farm. You know what I mean? So stuff like that. For like other than just map control, the other biggest thing about jungling is objectives. So you have it's called afflictions. So like Stormquiver and Mana Muzzle and Fault, and it's a big burst of damage you can use to take objectives. So let's say your team's taking Orb Prime, you can hit Orb Prime for like 1,000 health, and like kill it so that it can't be stolen. So just smiting for objectives. People are gonna say smiting. It's just what it's gonna be called. That's that like affliction items. So just smiting objectives and being there to kind of set the tempo across the map.
Mm-hmm. Sock, do you got anything to add to that, to the jungling?
No, it's pretty good. Obviously, learning timers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Of your camps, like we said. The thing I think that's important too is you have to like realize that the longer you wait for a camp to be taken, or when we're talking about like red or blue buff, is essentially the same thing that Reaver was talking. That's econ loss, right? Because you take a camp, it goes on a timer, respawn timer. It's up in whatever 5 minutes or whatever it is. I don't know necessarily, but that's just one of those things. It's pretty important. The faster you clear those things, the more often you're going to be able to get them on your side, if that makes sense. Yeah. So knowing, obviously, if you're going for like invades, like if you're, let's say you're invading on the weak side, and that would be, in this instance, you're on the side of the map where it's mid and the off laner, and they're both getting their shit pushed in. You might not necessarily want to go for an invade at that point in time unless you have vision on their jungler, because if you go in there and it's warded, then their laners can rotate, their jungler can rotate, and your laners are going to be missing out on farm and EXP. So those keeping those things in mind, because if you do something like that and your laners rotate and then you die and your laners have to rotate back to lane and they've missed farm, well, then you've not only cucked yourself, but you've cucked your laners too. So you don't want to do things like that. You know what I mean? In that sense.
Okay. And Meeks, when you say power farmer, that would be like this is the best example I would have because I'm just reading the chat there. That would be like if Sevarog's jungling, he's probably going to spend a little bit more time farming than going for a level 2 gank.
I mean, not necessarily. Seth clears pretty slow, actually, and he's like pretty weak early. So like he'll be like in the jungle for like different reasons than somebody like in the game. There's not too many like good power junglers, but like Chimera, I guess, would be a good example. Kind of, you should take camps pretty fast. But like once somebody like Grux gets into the game, where you can like use your abilities to do a lot of damage, like power farm, like Fang Mao probably be like a power farmer, stuff like that. But there's definitely like different tempos that are set based on how fast you can clear. Because like whenever I play Countess jungle, I guess Countess would be like a power farmer.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like maybe like, early she's not, but towards like mid game and late.
Well,
game, she definitely...
even early game, she's the fastest clearer for sure. Countess does. But like whenever I play like Countess jungle, like I'm able to kind of catch people off guard by like how fast I'll be like coming out of jungler with red and blue buff like ready to scrap. So
I just wanted to take this moment because I did get sent a small little clip. I think it's a really good clip, but I haven't looked at it yet. And we were given, I had to ask him before we're going to do this. We are allowed to critique this clip, so we're about to have a Coach Sock and Coach Reverb.
Oh,
coming in
baby.
strong for one
Coach
clip.
Verb's back.
And try not to be too toxic, but don't.
For sure. During the holiday access, I had Coach Verb mode, dude.
So this is the
take
clip.
Clips.
This is the clip. Just a small clip. You can clearly compare it. Wait, who are we watching?
I'm guessing we're watching K-Trucks or Richter.
Yeah.
Can you turn the quality up at all or no?
Well, let's see. Now that's as high as it goes.
It is really loud.
Oh yeah, that's that sweet,
then-
sweet hook.
Nice pull. The countess stuck gold.
This looks like more of a flex than a coaching, but
That's right.
Definitely,
That's right.
definitely looks like a
that,
like
that
a
was
flex.
a flex. Yeah, I didn't know what to expect, but.
All right, wait. All right. Hold up. Hey, let me pull one of these up real quick.
Okay.
If I can find my clips here. Hold up. Twitch has like changed their thing, so clips are a little bit more difficult to find. What the heck?
That's all right. K-Trox. We still got the clip up. No, that was nice. That was a nice pull, for sure. You saved your teammate. Sock, are you just getting ready to send something, or did you already send it?
Yeah, I'm looking for it right now.
Okay.
Hold on, let's see. Yeah, I mean you can keep going with what you're saying.
Okay. While Sock's doing this, we'll move on to the last role that we haven't talked about yet is the mid lane. So, we're hypothetically, this is your first time jumping in the mid lane. What are the fundamentals that you need to know to be a mid laner?
So I mean, I would say that possibly like right now the mid lane, like all the laners are like kind of fairly different from one another. So I think the matchups are like played. I don't know. Mid to me seems like the matchups are played like a lot differently depending on who you're playing against. So at least for the time being, just be conscious of that. Yeah, anybody kind of, it doesn't necessarily have to be a caster, but generally like people with high wave clear will go mid, right? Because you have pretty good opportunity to rotate. So yeah, like being conscious of like if somebody like tries to like pull like a steel mid or a greystone mid on you in the early access when that comes out, because those characters can kind of screw over some mid laners if you're not like playing safe. So I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things that just comes down to like basic laning, like fundamentals in mid lane. I think is you output more damage, so you have more of an ability to all in somebody. So if you see somebody use like a key ability, like for example, if Belka uses her stun and she misses you, you should have free range, right? Because
yeah, that was a sick Narbash ult.
she's probably not gonna be able to
Was that the
hit her
one
bomb.
where I wasn't looking at the gameplay? Sorry. Was that the one where I was in the in the prime pit and I accidentally hit the Q button?
Yeah.
Yeah. It happened. It did happen. Anywho, sorry, Sock, I cut you off.
Oh no, you're fine. Yeah, it's just one of those things where like, if you see them use like a key ability, like I said, like Belka, she uses her stun, right? She misses you.
Yeah.
Well, probably not going to be able to hit her bomb on you now because that thing's like pretty easy to avoid, right? And it's kind of hard for a Belka to hit that stuff without her stun. So you're probably going to be able to like hard win that. You know, she's like pretty dependent on that stun. Same thing with Countess, like her Q's like pretty different than a lot of other characters. So like if you're mid laner and your jungler comes in for a gank and she like Q's the wave, you might want to like stay next to her shadow if you know that she's gonna like warp back, right? You don't just like mindlessly chase her in those scenarios.
I mean,
So-
Talos has like the potential like outplay like almost every situation. She's like kind of big brain.
So yeah, here's the clip that I was gonna send you. I
got it?
found it. Yeah. Same thing with like Gideon. If you see him like use his like TP to go in, and he like whiffs his stuff, well now he doesn't have an escape. So, like, you should probably, probably try to do some damage to him. So.
Okay, this is Sockap's clip.
Fuck me.
Oh yeah, he's
That
just
is a-
flexing. I've seen this clip.
This is a godlike
Tower's
hook.
got big hitbox, yeah.
Oh my god, dude! Yes, mine, dude!
Godlike hook, dude.
That was good. That was good. Hang on.
So K-Trucks used to watch my stream back in the day when I played Paragon all the time. He's always in there. Pretty sure K-Trucks was like one of my first mods in my channel, but he's always sharing some Richter clips between each other. Is always fun. So the other thing too with mid lane is I also wouldn't be scared to experiment with mid lane because probably have like a lot more versatility in mid lane than you do in the other lanes of like it's not so solidified. So like somebody like Steel could be a good pick in mid lane depending on who you're going against because he passively gets magic resistance every time he hits a CC, right? So stuff like that might be good.
I think when it comes to mid lane, in my opinion, like the basic fundamentals, if you're a new player, what you would what I would love. What I think you should do? Sorry guys, I got sidetracked. I was looking at my gameplay. What I think you should do as a mid laner is you got to get really good at poking, whether that be in team fights or against just the enemy mid laner. Farming obviously, but that's kind of beside the point. You have to know when you are capable of rotating. Because a mid laner is the first one that can usually be there, except that the jungle is obviously right there beside him. So you are usually the first, second man into a fight, and the mid laner is essentially like a second carry for the team, right? They're usually the ones that do the magic damage. That's not necessarily the case all the times, but that's like the majority of times, right?
Yeah, I mean mages are like your primary source of like ability damage and
So
energy damage.
They are the ones that you need to know when you're capable of rotating, and you need to be good at poking. That's like my big mid lane stuff that I think.
Yeah. The other thing too is that like if like mages tend to do like a lot of damage like early on, they would kind of be like unless your ADC is like super fed or whatever, like your mid laner, at least in Paragon and so far in Fault, seems like your mid laner is like a good source of like early damage, right? Like probably what can kind of carry you through early game, whereas they will probably fall off for the most point. Some of them won't late game, but your carry kind of takes over late game. So a lot of like the early game fights definitely get determined by a good mid laner, where in-game fights will get determined by more so a good carry and a good like tank for initiating or support for peeling for the carry. Those the fights tend to go a little bit better that way.
Yeah.
Well, they were talking about like poke. Like you need to know when to like poke, but like more importantly than when to like go for trades as a mage is like when to kind of all in team fights.
Okay.
Like with Belko, you can't really all in, but like with most casters and like currently Gideon, Tonis, like your all in potential is where you really like can swing a fight just by like actually blowing someone up.
Yeah.
But
And that will happen. Some characters like Countess, always bring up Countess. They can just face palm their keyboard, and you can die. Like that's it. You're gonna get deleted.
Oh, even Gideon in this, like I will say that once again, like Fault is not so much like Paragon was, where like you can kind of carry in your respective roles if you're good enough, and you can actually have like more of an impact as a solo player on your game than you could as Paragon. I feel like so, like even characters like Gideon, like if you get ahead as Gideon like early, it makes the game like pretty rough for any of the squishies because you're just gonna hit them with a rock and they're gonna be like, oh my god, half my HP's gone. You know what I mean? So it can get pretty brutal if they have like a Fed Countess or Gideon.
with Gideon's new passive, like if he's ahead, he can actually like one rotation you. Like Q, if he hits like Q, right click, you can actually just die. Like,
100%. So I just wanted to ask you guys one question. This is kind of off topic there. As two people that are trying to be very good at the game, what are you two doing individually to make sure that you stay on top of your mechanics and MOBA knowledge as a tester, as a streamer, as just a player for Fault?
I mean, right now we like very close to like EA stuff, so like we can't really like play the game like every day, you know. So
It makes us
like,
play League. That helps for sure.
Yeah, play League. Like just, I mean, PC mechanics overall are pretty like useful. Like, just having good movement and like good aim, but also just like MOBA knowledge at the end of the day. Like you can be a pretty like poor mechanical player, like you can and do well.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm a very good mechanical player, but like I tend to always do like somewhat okay in games, and that's just because of just MOBA knowledge.
MOBA knowledge is everything, man. It really is. It's the majority of things they should suppose. And was there anything I didn't ask you guys that you wish I did ask you during this stream?
I don't think so. I think we like pretty much covered everything. Patrox asks, can good mechanics compensate for some knowledge? Yeah, for sure.
They can.
If you're
it's also role dependent.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're like a nuts mid laner and just like when you're 1v1 every time and just get ahead, like you don't have to like know what you're doing necessarily. You just kind of kill people.
Yeah, that'll carry you to like a certain extent, but then you'll get to the point where you're playing.
Everyone's good.
Yeah, everybody's playing at the same level that you are, and then it's gonna be dependent on like the higher concepts, I guess, of playing. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, when the game comes out in EA, definitely want as a support player want to be like more conscious of like important cooldowns, timers, all that stuff.
Well, like just from like watching like your VOD, like that you're playing in the background, like there's so many mechanical things that like obviously can go wrong, but like just like whenever they're on a tower shooting at your like tower, like you could have hopped in front of that like Murdoch at any point and had him like take tower aggro. You know what I mean? Like just stuff like that. There's little things like that like you'll just slowly. It's not necessarily hard to do. You just have to like develop it into your game.
Yeah.
Like you just have to make it like a part of your routine.
Yeah. Yeah, I missed. This isn't the highest quality gameplay. Let's say
It's okay. I'm not like saying that just because I'm only saying because it's right in front of me.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Just like knowing when to like hold stuns, like if you know like a Gideon's very like YOLO in, like you can hold a stun and make sure you're like speeding in and out for your carry.
Yeah, for sure. So
I don't know what I said. And I just wanted to do one last thing, if you guys don't mind, because we got about 10 minutes left till we hit the 3-hour mark there. I just wanted to go over a very quick tier list of what you guys think are the best characters going into EA
Steel.
at this moment.
Well, let's talk through his, because mine's probably going to be way different.
I think Steel's number 1 right now.
So you think Steel's number 1?
Yeah, I think that. All right, yeah. Let's look at the tier list. I think Steel's number 1. I think that. Yeah, would you want to like based off of roles? It'd be easier just to do it based off of roles.
If you want to do it off of roles, let's do it.
Yeah, I'd say Steel, Narbash, Muriel right now. ADCs, I would say TB over Murdoch currently. Mid laners, I'd say, in my opinion, Gideon, Countess, Bellica. In terms of like fighters or junglers, I'd say. Oh, shoot, I don't know too much. Maybe. Greystone. I don't know. It's kind of hard. Like Severog is like really good late, so I mean I think he's like potential there. But maybe like Greystone, Sev, Chimera, Quang, Boris.
My goodness, we have a lot of junglers or fighters.
Yeah, that's how I'd put it right now.
That's a scuff tier list, bro.
Okay, what do you
Whatever.
think? What do you think?
Your tier list is scuff. Let's hear it.
So like, I think I'm gonna go like from the top down, like forgetting about like roles, because like obviously in a 1v1, like Severog can probably just like walk up and kill anyone, but like subjectively comparing them to like their roles, I think is Also, we don't know what Sparrow, but I'm pretty sure Sparrow would be the best character in the game. Not even close. Like,
yeah. She seems crazy,
but,
dude. You literally hit 2 autos and you do more damage than both the ADCs do. By whack.
Okay, so I think it goes Steel, Twin Blast, Severog, Bellica, Narbash, Greystone, Gideon, Countess, Quang, Muriel, Chimera, Boris.
You guys still think Boris is at the bottom?
Yeah, he's pretty dog shit.
Yeah. He's not quite. You kind of have to like build him as like an assassin to do anything.
He'll be a good like stat stick champion, just like that has a bunch of like strong stats. He just needs some like general buffs across the board. He's not far.
See, if I was to do my tier list off of the tester streams I've seen, the little new passives and the gameplay I saw, I would say Steel's number 1. Then I would say Severog, and then I would say Sparrow, Twin Blast, Greystone, Gideon, Bellica. Wait, did I say Narbash already? Narbash, Chimera, Quag, Muriel, Boris.
Dude, my chick Countess dirty. You didn't even rate her, bro.
It's not even on the list, dude.
Okay, hang on. Steel.
Well, you don't have to do the whole thing, but I think Countess is really strong in the jungle.
Countess is probably above Quang, but lower than Civ, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's a very wide range, but sure, yeah.
Yeah, so, but it's I definitely like think that
the game's pretty like balanced, honestly. Like there's some like outliers, but I don't think it's that like nuts.
We'll see when Sparrow comes out. Like,
and that's
what...
the thing. Like, there's always gonna be a bad character, like a low tier character. Like, it's never not gonna happen. You know what I mean? Just so happens it's Boris.
Well, yeah, we'll see what with Sparrow. She probably, I would imagine, has pretty good like level 1, level 2 potential just with her passive, because you're just gonna be doing like consecutively more damage level 1 with your autos, and if you take something like piercing shot, like I don't know what's the damage on piercing shot level 1 if you go to more info on Sparrow.
It is 75 base and then 75% scaling.
Yeah, so
you'd hit for like 80.
Yeah, so I mean that's essentially like a little bit more than a regular auto. I feel like if you're support, like if you're playing with a Narbash, for example, if they just walk up level 1 and stun the ADC and she doesn't miss any auto attacks, you're probably just gonna kill them. You're gonna be able to piercing shot them from forever away to finish them off if they do happen to get out.
Yeah.
So
and there's no running away as long as they don't miss their shot, of course, right?
Her power spike's gonna be like she's gonna go like right click and then like E 3 times.
Yeah.
This is how you're gonna start. You're gonna get your E level 3 as fast as possible.
Sweet. So, is there anything
which
else?
one is their E?
Is there anything else you two would like to say?
The mark. I don't have anything to say other than thanks for having us on.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, for sure, dude.
We're going to the ending there now, and so we'll do this one last time. Hey, what a flippy flop though! This is Stranger or Big Moose. This Faultarian Journal number 8. We had Sockcap and Reverb come on to the stream there now as special guests. Thank you to them. Please go follow them on Twitch and on Twitter. We also have Gotta Get Swole, who is here as well, listening in. He's been doing a lot of back-end stuff that we've been typing back and forth. Anywho, that's beside the point. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream, and we're going to leave it with one last song. And we do this every week. Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern is when we start. And I'll see you in the next one.